Hey guys, how are you doing? Today I bring you a story where the protagonist is completely messed up. Think of a guy with the worst luck ever. He had $1 million debt and a few months ago he lost his parents in a car accident. Because of that, his sister suffered serious damage and needs to take extremely expensive medicine. And to be able to pay for the medication, he is going to accept a very strange job. And his boss is a really cool waifu. So keep watching because I'm sure you're going to like this awesome story. And don't forget to leave a like and a comment to support the channel. The story already starts with him at the hospital paying for the medication. The health insurance wouldn't pay for his sister's neural regeneration treatment. The guy was already getting worried, since the insurance was very expensive and still didn't cover it. Pointing at the tablet screen, she shows the price of the medicine. It cost 5 million won, which converted is about $3,000. The amount was very high, and the doctor said she would only walk again if she took this medication. He goes to his sister's room to see if the girl was doing well. Worried, she asked if the hospital bill was expensive. No, it wasn't. Come on, I already got a job here and I'll be able to pay for it, don't worry. She was an athlete in the gymnastics club and tells him she will recover and go back to participating in athletics. The young man gives a smile, saying that of course she will recover and be as good as new. After his parents passed away in a car accident, he even had to take out bank loans to pay for the girl's treatment. Now he was completely screwed, and the salary he earned barely covered 1 week of medication. He even gets angry, thinking about what he could possibly do, and holding a medicine case, he throws it away. Right after, a kitten climbs on top of that case. Money. It all comes down to money. I need to get a job that pays well. My credit score is already ruined and I owe all the banks, and if I don't pay for this medication, my sister will lose movement in her legs. The guy even falls to the ground saying he urgently needs a new job. If he didn't do that, his sister's future would be ruined. He gets up, slapping his hand on his knee. When he goes to pick up the case, there was a kitten on top playing with it. He grabs the case, but the cat hangs onto his arm. At that moment, he notices that a card had been placed inside it. And when he takes out the card, he starts reading some strange information. Are you urgently in need of a well-paid daily job? Contact the number on the card. Looking at that, he finds it very suspicious. Especially in the place where we live, you don't just find good opportunities like that. So he just throws the card away and leaves. But since the guy lives in Korea, he couldn't throw trash on the ground. So he goes back to pick up the card. Later he gets home and realizes his phone was ringing. It was a notification from the bank charging interest. So he immediately runs to change clothes. He would urgently need to find another job. And since he hadn't thrown the card away, he thinks about calling. After all guys, he couldn't afford to be too picky. During the call, a woman kept saying some strange phrases, but that was fine. He was there waiting for someone to answer, and after the robot said those strange lines, someone finally picked up. Right away he got worried, thinking it was someone involved in crime. So he even pulled the phone away from his face, while the woman asked who was on the other side of the line. The woman said she was from the funeral work at the municipal hospital, so he ended up agreeing to go there for the interview. However, he was supposed to show up at the place in about 30 minutes, but it was far. And even so, our young man put on his suit and went there. It was strange for a job interview to happen in a place like that. At that moment, a woman appeared while he was thinking that this job was weird. Are you by any chance Lido Jin? Yes, that's me, Lido Jin. The guy immediately blushed. That's because the girl who appeared there was extremely beautiful and charming. When he saw this woman for the first time, he felt two things. One of them was an inexplicable sense of trust. Just because she was such a beautiful woman, he already knew the job wasn't illegal. And the second thing he felt was an inexplicable fear. She got very close to him and what he was feeling was thalassophobia. I looked it up here and it's the unthinkable fear of large bodies of water. Only those who saw the sea for the first time know what that is. At that moment, the shameless guy kept staring at her dress and in a somewhat strange way she got closer to him. It seemed like she was smelling his perfume. My God, good thing I put on perfume before coming here. After checking everything, she said he should follow her. Alright, what kind of job are we gonna do? And when they got near a woman crying, she said it was a kind of funeral. There was an old man trying to take advantage of the woman who had just lost her husband. He touched the woman's shoulder, saying he adored her husband. At that moment, the woman told him to get his filthy hands off her. And the girl said Mr. Lee should get ready. Get ready for what? I don't get it. While she sipped tea with great elegance, he realized there was a fight going on. That old man kept insisting on talking to the woman, but she wasn't feeling very well. And at that moment, our dear protagonist went there and held the old man's hand. I'm an employee of the funeral service company, and don't you see you're bothering the lady? When he mentioned that he was part of a funeral service, the old man started shouting in disgust and even slapped Mr. Lee's hand. As she got closer, the girl named Sasha said that our hero had met the right person. And while she read something on the clipboard, our hero thought he was wrong, that it wasn't any funeral service at all. And in a mysterious way, Sasha knew all the information about that old man, even telling him the year he was born and how many children he had. Besides that, he was the secretary general of a political group, and now he was a city councilman. Besides being corrupt, he was also a murderer, and ordered the elimination of several people, including that woman's husband. Upon hearing that, the lady is in shock. Last night the guy was eliminated, run over. That's because the man was a journalist who was investigating this corrupt councilman. At that moment, the shameless old man starts laughing. He thought Sasha and Lee were investigators, or maybe prosecutors, and even said he was going to call some employees to deal with our hero. And in a serious way, the lady said that his karmic debt had already been paid. He would be paying for all the crimes he had been committing during these 60 years. And strangely enough, even trash like him had a chance to repent. But ignorantly, the guy keeps saying that this woman is crazy, that she should stop persecuting him, and even makes a call threatening Sasha and Lee. At that moment, a light starts to appear in that man. Get ready, Mr. Lee. Now that our work begins, we need to stop him. What? Stop this person? He wasn't understanding anything. Suddenly, the old man falls to the ground. He goes there to see if the man was alive. She points her finger forward and says they need to stop that person. And when our hero looks ahead, he doesn't understand anything. That's because there was a sinister energy emerging in the place, and suddenly a monster began to appear. It had long fur. He was screwed, since he just wanted a job to get some money, and now he was facing a demonic wolf. The creature asks, "What are those two young ones?" And trying to keep Sasha safe, he tells her to step back. At that moment, the woman they were protecting disappears, and Sasha tells him to stay calm. In fact, they were the ones who ended up in another world, as if it were a parallel universe, thanks to a barrier she placed inside the funeral, so that they could fight there safely. The monster realizes it was placed in the hunting ground, and already prepares to attack the girl. It attacks the ground, destroying everything, but Sasha manages to jump back, carrying the old man and Lee. Our protagonist crashes hard onto the floor. Our task today is to stop this hunt. She explains that these monsters are called Mokdugi, and the creature was spitting lightning everywhere. Pulling out her clipboard, she makes a magic circle and manages to block that spell. Lee thought she was just a stylish woman, but no guys. Upon seeing that clipboard with a magic symbol, the wolf already realized who that woman was, and kept saying that the white-haired woman was a very skilled warrior, leaving our hero surprised. That's why the wolf would have to take the fight more seriously, and ends up firing a blast of energy. The place where they were explodes, and once again the tall girl was there to protect him. The wolf, upon seeing that scene, keeps saying this is a drag and even claims it's shameful. The guy is being saved by a woman, and of course the wolf wouldn't miss the chance to mock, and kept comparing our protagonist to a chick hiding behind a hen's wings. In response, Sasha said that the wolf was getting ahead of himself, since he couldn't even scratch them. "What are you talking about, woman? Stop provoking this beast." With that, she makes a proposal. She proposed a duel between the rookie boy and this monster. Whoever caused the first damage, even a small cut, would win the battle. Of course, the wolf found that an insult. That's why he accepted the duel. Except the human was supposed to get a weapon first to make it fairer. "What? You think? You really think I can win against this wolf? Don't worry, I'll help you." She sets him down as if he were a little prince, and even keeps asking if he brought any weapon with him. "Why do you think I'd have a weapon? I didn't even know I was going to fight monsters. You must have been part of the archery club, right?" "Yes, I was. But I won't be able to defeat him with a bow and arrow. Don't you have any weapon with you?" "No, why would I?" And getting very close to our young man, she keeps asking what kind of weapon he could handle. Since he said that in today's world you don't need so many weapons, she kept belittling him. Calm down, leave it to me. I'm a former soldier." He was acting brave, but deep down he was scared to death. At that moment she tells him to kneel, and the guy just obeys. And by touching his forehead, she was going to pass on a little of her ability. Unexpectedly, she gives a little kiss on Mr. Lee's forehead. And now any weapon he imagined he would be able to materialize. In a serious way, she keeps saying that he could create any weapon from the real world, and even says she's sure he'll be able to materialize whatever weapon he wants. The guy is paralyzed, redder than a tomato, and already slaps his own face trying to control himself. Meanwhile, the wolf is there waiting with the greatest patience in the world, and asks if by chance the boy is ready yet. The duel would be as follows. Whoever hit the other first would win the duel. The guy is already thinking about what kind of weapon he's going to create to be able to defeat that creature, but the wolf didn't want to wait. He already charges right in. What they didn't expect was that our protagonist was trained in 3D modeling. So thinking of any object in 3 dimensions was very easy for him. Normally people materialized only swords and bows and arrows, since it was easier. But our young man was prepared, and starts charging up a power, looking like he was about to launch a Kamehameha. The Mukdugi was already almost upon him, and at that moment he materializes a firearm. The monster lunges with a claw, about to hit him. And Mr. Lee, having very few ideas as he is, already starts shooting. The shot hits right on the little dog's paw, and he doesn't stop there. The guy keeps firing several bullets, and all of them hit the monster. At that moment the wolf realized he had lost, and the guy didn't stop, guys. He keeps shooting. Sasha even gives a little smile there, all happy. He had materialized an M16 rifle. The wolf even admits he lost, and said he didn't imagine that this human could use iron and fire, and even laughs saying this was very interesting. As promised, he ended up losing the battle, so he would retreat, and said that for today it would be over. But don't forget, my name is Night Frost. I am one of the 6 precious kings. Alright, little wolf, and my name is Mr. Lee Dong-jin, a reservist of the Republic of Korea. The wolf just gives a laugh and said he would remember that name and leaves in a somewhat grim way. Right after, Sasha dissolves that barrier, and they return to the real world. The young man wasn't understanding anything, and was more lost than a blind man in a shootout. She simply undid the barrier, and we were back in the hospital hallway. She claps saying that Lee did very well, and now he could relax a little. She snaps her fingers, and his weapon disappears. Instantly an amount is transferred to his account, and now she was going to explain a little more about the step-by-step of this job. But he says he doesn't need it. I only came because of the salary, so I'm not that interested in this, because it's too dangerous. Thank you very much, but I'm leaving. Sasha told him to wait a little. In that envelope was the same amount of money that had been deposited into his account, and she kept acting all charming to hand over that envelope. He accepts and gets a little curious. The girl also says that if he wants the job again, he just has to open that envelope and she will appear wherever he is. And after throwing all her charm at Mr. Lee, she says she hopes to see him again, and she was clearly hitting on him. At that moment, we see a flashback of an accident. Our hero, along with his sister and his parents, ended up suffering a terrible car accident. And in the last moments of his life, his father kept asking the young man to take care of his little sister. The next day, after he had defeated that wolf, he wakes up with his sister throwing an ice cube on his cheek, and right after she throws another ice cube, this time on his chest. The guy gets super startled, and she keeps teasing him, saying that he had finally woken up. She asks if he forgot that today she had to go back to the hospital to continue the treatment. She was only going to prepare breakfast and then asked him to take her there. The guy was extremely worried, since he wouldn't have money to keep paying for that treatment. And this was the last session. But he remembers that yesterday, he received a payment for having defeated that monster, and hadn't even checked on his phone. After opening his bank app, he decides to see how much he received. At that moment, our protagonist is in shock. The guy had received 5 million won, which is about 3,500. It was exactly the amount he needed to pay for the physiotherapy sessions, and also the medicine. While having breakfast, he just keeps thinking about that salary. It was a very high amount, and he couldn't refuse a job like that. But at the same time, he keeps thinking it's dangerous, and if by any chance he died, he would leave his sister alone. He was so distracted that he ended up hitting his foot on the edge of the bed, and even fell to the ground, screaming in pain. That job, even though dangerous, paid well. That's why he kept staring at the envelope. Should I open it? Well, I only have money to pay for the next sessions, and the next dose of medicine. And she also said that if by any chance I opened the envelope, she would appear wherever I was. And she even said it in a bit of a strange way. Could it be that she likes me? Well, I can't really be picky with jobs, so I think I'll open the envelope to be able to use the money. At that moment, he hears Sasha's voice asking if he really opened the envelope. My God, could it be that she appeared inside my room? He even gets scared to look back, and when he pulls his blanket, there was Sasha lying on his bed. I don't know about you, but I think this girl is totally into our dear Mr. Lee. He even screams, asking what the hell she's doing in his room. After falling on the ground, he keeps asking if she is a ghost. His sister heard the noise of a girl in the room and decides to go there to check. The young man realizes that she was coming in all of a sudden, and when entering the room, she asks what he was doing. Our young man tried to hide Sasha under the blankets. He was angry because she came into the room without knocking. Then she kept saying she just came to check what was going on. She swore she had heard a woman's voice, and he said it was the phone. At that moment, his little sister started thinking nonsense. You know very well what she's thinking. She knows very well that he is lonely and is an adult who doesn't have a girlfriend. So she respects what he is doing, but keeps mocking him, saying that he's doing it during the day. The young man just pretends and says nothing, while his sister leaves to go to the convenience store. My God, she ended up understanding everything wrong. Well, it's better she thinks that than discovering there's a girl here in my bed. While on top of her, Sasha asked if by any chance he had changed his mind. Right after, they go to a cafe to be able to talk better. He did that to prevent his sister from ending up finding Sasha. A piece of news in the newspaper ends up catching their attention. They were saying that Councilman had died in a car accident that dawn. And the boy asked Sasha if it wasn't exactly that guy they had saved the night before. She said yes, and after they saved him from the hospital, he ended up dying in a getaway in front of the hospital. Ironically, he died the same way he used to order his thugs to kill his opponents. But thanks to our hero defeating that wolf, that old man's soul was safely guided to hell. What? Hell? What do you mean? Wait, what exactly are you? She explains that actually, she comes from another world. If it weren't for the things he saw yesterday, he would be thinking that this girl was crazy. And trembling all over, he starts to believe her story, and asks if by any chance she is some kind of Reaper. She says it's sort of like that, only she was at a rank a bit higher than Reaper, and was called Xinjiang. Searching here guys, Xinjiang refers specifically to the 8 guardian generals, that in Buddhist religion. She explains that her job is to defeat demonic forces to guide souls to the right place. In other words, she basically was a protector of souls. She keeps explaining to him, Those monsters were the only beings in all of creation that weren't born in this universe. Those creatures descended from human sins, and since they didn't belong to this world, they were remnants of human souls that dwelled on the edges of life. Those Mokdugi fed on souls, and once they were eaten, they ceased to exist. The scene changes to a guy fighting. Actually, he was doing a kind of training, and we see that it was that wolf who had fought our hero, only now he was transformed into a kind of humanoid. After training, he dusts himself off, and another person appears on top of a tree mocking him. Keeps saying that the incredible Night Frost had lost to a rookie human. This person who appeared had a feline tail and kept mocking up there, saying that he was now training breaking stones just to try to get revenge on a boy. The man says that this kitty should be careful with the words, and, winking, she keeps saying that this wolf was very sensitive. Jumping down from above, she keeps saying that he was very mediocre for having failed in his hunt. And in defense, he said that he didn't lose, he only fulfilled the promise. The cat acts like a Brazilian and starts playing soccer with the pebble, and still keeps saying that Night Frost is outdated and that he is no longer able to perform hunts efficiently. That's how the young people nowadays call the true warriors, and the cat keeps laughing there. But Night Frost didn't like the joke very much and kept trying to threaten the cat. Well, anyway, the mother wanted to hear the reason for his failure, and sighing, he says that he will go there to visit her. The cat says goodbye, saying that there's more to do, and turning around asks if that boy really was strong. Back to the cafeteria. She says that people who did many evil deeds, like that councilman, end up staining their souls, and when the soul is stained, it becomes prone to being devoured by those evil creatures. Since it was the fault of the people themselves, our hero said that it doesn't make sense to protect these people who do bad things. But she says that this is to maintain the order of the universe. The souls that accumulated good deeds were fit to reincarnate and become better and virtuous beings in other dimensions. And that was the order of the universe, the law of the cosmos. That's why human souls were so valuable. It took hundreds of years for a new soul to be born. She explains this saying that the soul is the most precious and valuable thing in the whole universe. Now he realized why they needed to protect it so much. It was a little hard to accept all this, but it made sense. Especially because he managed to materialize a weapon, and that wasn't the most common thing to do. When he thought about that power, he could feel that rifle in his hand again. The girl stands up and shows him a scroll with various information, explaining that, according to a person's life, they accumulate several negative actions, and this ends up creating monstrous creatures like the one he had fought the previous night. And if they don't take the souls of negative people to be purified in hell, they will keep creating more monsters like those. And this could cause a gigantic catastrophe for the whole universe. He understands that this is really very important. But he didn't have time to worry about these things, since his little sister was sick, and he needed to pay the expensive hospital bills. So he thanks her for the explanation and says that he will leave. But he stops in the middle of the way because he had an idea. Wait a minute, since you are a goddess, you can very well heal my sister, can't you? And why don't you also fight against these creatures? You need humans. She explains that she can very well fight against those creatures, but if she, who is a goddess, fights against that monster, she will destroy its soul. Humans are the only ones who can purify those creatures when they are defeated, since basically they are opposite forces. The weapons that she creates with her own power cannot destroy the Mokdugi. That's why the deities have made alliances with humans for thousands of years. She extends her hand and ends up holding the fingers of our hero, saying that she needs his ability. She knew that the boy was very talented. That's why he would be the hope to maintain balance in the universe. Our boy blushes, dying of embarrassment. And at that instant he sees his little sister passing by outside. He even lowers his face trying to hide. What is it? Why are you acting like this? Ah no, it's nothing. If my sister sees that I'm going out with a girl, she will start asking lots of questions. For her to keep walking like she is doing, she would need physiotherapy and expensive medicines. And while Sasha was holding his hands, he wanted to ask another question. Since she is a goddess, she could very well heal his sister, and he asks if she could do this for him. If by chance she does this, he will accept this job. Sasha said that she was very sorry for his little sister, but she couldn't do this. The goddesses had an absolute prohibition of directly influencing the life of humans. And even if this divine miracle had good intentions, she would not be able to do this. She says she is sorry, and our boy gets sad. However, our hero already knew that this would be more difficult than expected, but to pay for all the medicines and physiotherapy, he would need a very high salary. In a serious way, he asks if by chance, if he fights those monsters, she could pay for all his sister's treatment. Sasha agrees to do this. And our boy here, folks, he's no fool. Thinking about it, I would like you to also pay all the housing and food expenses. And Sasha keeps nodding her head. Could you also update my computer? I want a gaming PC that runs all the games. And she nods in agreement. And while the scene zooms out, he keeps asking for several things, like paying for his sister's college and also a trip abroad. This protagonist here is no fool, folks. Later he returns home. He was eating rice peacefully, and meanwhile his sister was reading a book. Sweating cold, he calls Yedin and asks if she misses dad and mom, and if by chance sometimes she cries at night missing them. The girl closes the book, puts it on the table and said no, since he has been filling the void that their parents left. This leaves the boy shocked because she was much more mature than him. Anyway, it was for their parents to be at peace wherever they were. And the girl keeps thinking that her brother plays the role of father, since he is very responsible. The scene goes to a mall and we see that cat messing with some CDs. It seems that she likes music, and while looking at the cover of a record, she keeps humming. In the empty space she left after removing that record, a rat appeared. And it was a somewhat evil little rat, called by Miss Summer. And taking off her hat, she throws it on top of the rat, saying that this little bastard had scared her. Besides, ordinary people went crazy when they saw rats, so he wasn't supposed to do that kind of thing. Right after, she asks what had happened. The little mouse wanted to fight against that boy who defeated Nightfrost. And the girl asks if by any chance the mouse knows what kind of human that was. He says yes, and says that the other monsters are all excited, since the human even managed to defeat the king of beasts. The girl says that the mouse is too small, and would be defeated even faster than Nightfrost, and that, above all, courage was not enough. But the mouse had a strategy to defeat that boy. A mouse can be very weak, but a colony of individuals was practically indestructible. And he also states that the boy wouldn't have enough bullets to defeat the entire colony. Besides, they were determined to defeat that boy. With nothing much to say against it, the girl ends up agreeing, saying that since they made a promise, they are capable of fulfilling it, and even gives an evil smile, as if she wanted to use them to achieve her own goal. Then, does that mean you would be willing to die fighting against him? The mice say yes, and say that they are willing to sacrifice their own lives to defeat that human. They would do anything to defeat him, no matter the cost. Taking her hat, she agrees, saying that they are very determined, and says that blood and sacrifice will become the foundation for the salvation of the Mokdugi world. And in a dark way, she tells everyone to start preparing for battle. In short, for those who are still in doubt, these creatures devour the souls of people, especially those who are very weak because they caused many bad things. And our protagonist became an agent of that goddess, who goes around saving these people who are about to be devoured. In other words, he is a very big obstacle for these Mokdugi. That's why they want to eliminate the boy. And the poor guy just wanted money to pay the medical expenses. The first week had passed. He was training with Sasha. The kid was running like Usain Bolt. All this to analyze his physical condition and endurance. She also put several seals on his body to make these precise measurements. In the first week, the guy kept running back and forth and she ran with him to evaluate. The guy even comments that this girl doesn't even get tired, but all this was necessary to see his energy level. She keeps saying some things and the guy gets embarrassed thinking nonsense. And in a serious way, the girl tells him to focus on the training. And there was the big guy running until he almost collapsed. In the second week, the training was different. He went to a gym to lift weights. The dude was almost dying from so much effort, and whatever he did, the girl wrote it down on her clipboard. Great job. Now let's increase this weight a little more, okay? And she already throws a 50 kg altar at him. And in the third week, they measured his cardiorespiratory function. He was outdoors doing endurance tests without being able to breathe, with a bubble of water on his face. And finally she made him climb a mountain. He hadn't given up yet, only because the salary was very high. And tell me, would you also risk your life to earn a good amount? After reaching the top, the guy falls to the ground exhausted. She comments that he was 2 minutes and 5 seconds slower than yesterday, and now he would need to run back to the mountain spring. Hours later, he arrives down there and keeps begging for rest. And she said that if he reached the next point within 10 minutes, she would grant him a wish. No matter what it was, you said, I just need to make it in 10 minutes. You would grant any wish? The guy already stands up all excited and runs at full speed. Super motivated. You can already imagine what he would like to ask for, right? But the guy didn't make it, folks. He did it in 18 minutes and 25 seconds. His soul was almost leaving his body, and she gives him a little bottle of water so he can hydrate. Even though he had taken almost twice the time, she said he did very well. He couldn't complete the course in 10 minutes, but thanks to this 3-week training, he became much stronger. But that didn't matter to him. He just wanted to rest. From now on, they would train so he could master the power of mana. Next, they sit on the bench and she starts making some explanations. Humans had an energy called mana and were able to do some spells with this power. How come all humans have this power? She said yes, and that first they would need to do some sort of advanced training. With the seal in hand, she said that it was to measure the maximum power he had, and ended up summoning Sorong, who was her assistant, to create a protective training barrier. Sorong, who was the assistant, made a barrier there on the spot, and little by little, the barrier began to grow, filling the entire space. In moments, the entire sanctuary where they were was protected by that magical barrier. Sasha said that this was the moment for him to learn to use mana more precisely, and explained that, when he fought against those creatures, they were usually taken to another universe. If he wanted to survive in the fight against Smoke Doug, he should focus more on this lesson from now on. Sorang was there watching everything and said that it was very irritating. She was angry because Mr. Lee was taking too much of Sasha's time, and the girl got jealous, saying that she wasn't having time to have fun with her miss. All this because that stupid guy had passed the physical strength and meditation tests. On screen, Sasha asked Sorong to use the test to measure the boy's mana limit, and she ended up activating it there on the computer. She did everything her miss asked, but she was hoping that Mr. Lee would do very badly. Our hero ended up kneeling. Since he had already manifested a rifle, she asked him to manifest a metal cube. Since he was a 3D modeler, that was very easy. In just a few moments, he began the materialization. The cube appeared, and it was for him to keep that same size and only increase the weight. That's exactly what he did, and the cube even began to sink into the ground. Right? Now keep increasing its weight until I tell you to stop. Clapping her hands, she asked Sorong to take the measurement. That way the magic circle appeared in her hands, and she started doing the weight measurements. A kind of little robot ended up coming out from inside, and our hero kept increasing the weight of the cube. At that moment, a magic thread went to Mr. Lee's forehead, and she explained that it was to measure the total mana he was using on the computers. It had reached the level of 94%. She explained to Sasha that going past 90 was normal, reaching around up to 100%. But the girl said that Sorong should get ready, because it was going to go past 100, and it was to warn when it passed 180. But the blonde wasn't really believing that. The level of our hero's mana usage was already quite high. Do you feel physical changes in your body? Particularly don't have any problem with that? The girl said it was normal, but when using too much mana, he could end up with weakened vital force. He felt relieved, saying, I imagined that if I used all my mana, I could collapse and faint. But there was the problem. Sasha said that excessive mana use had no physical symptoms. Sasha, who was in the office, observed on the panel his mana usage reaching 150. Not even she was believing that. It had jumped from 130 to 153 in a very quick way. And Sasha explained that when his mana ran out, he would have a nosebleed. He was to stay alert, because when a drop of blood dripped, he should stop immediately. And if I keep using my mana after that nosebleed, she explained that it would start draining the energy of the soul. And from that moment on, his life expectancy would drop in an absurd way. That's why it was so dangerous for humans to use mana, because it could extinguish and he wouldn't even notice. At that moment something caught her attention. It was Sorong, on the other side of the screen, saying that Lee had already used 170% and now reached 180, 190, 200, until his nose started bleeding. Sasha got really close and told him to stop immediately. And our big guy interrupted the weight of the magic cube. He just followed the girl's instructions and everyone was surprised because he managed to reach 200%. Handing him a little tissue, she said he did a great job. He was to remember that feeling of his nose running, because it was a sign to stop. Giving a completely love-struck smile, our big guy thanked her. After performing the tests, she asked Sorong to tell what the final reading was. The girl couldn't believe what she was reading. The guy had really reached 200 mana energy points. Or rather, it wasn't 200, it was 274. And Sorong even asked if Sasha knew he had aptitude for that. Looking at her apprentice, she just gave a smile, as if to say, leave it to me, my girl. There was a reason for him to have such a huge amount of mana. It was because he had inherited the will of a person. Inherited a will? How so? Since his parents had passed away, they must have asked something very sincere of him. At that moment, our big guy remembered his father's last words. On the day of the accident, he had asked him to take care of his younger sister, and Lee ended up explaining that to Sasha. When someone sincere makes a request before dying, the person who receives that request and fulfills it ends up gaining a purpose in life. That inherited will increased the person's power, and in moments of despair, they could inherit the mana of the one who had passed away. That was the so-called mana reception, or inherited will. He crouched down to pick up the cube and realized that weight had been transmitted by his father and mother. Sasha crouched down and held our big guy's hand, telling him to take very good care of that power he received. And because of what happened, he could use it for good, saving countless people. The big guy was very moved, got up and ran to the water fountain. Getting there, he filled a cup of water, poured it on his head and made an excuse to Sasha, saying that it was very hot, but in fact it was because he was in love with her. All wet, he stood there trembling with cold, and even apologized, saying he only threw that water because he was feeling very hot. Giving a sarcastic smile, she said that it really was very hot. She had already noticed that he liked her. For today, the training was over and he should study the rest at home. She even joked, telling him to put ice on his face because his cheeks were red. But the guy shouted, saying that he wasn't red at all. The next day, he woke up very early. His sister asked if he was going out again, and even commented that, by the clothes he was wearing, it was obvious he wasn't going to work. He said he was going to do physical exercises, and she kept asking what for. And the big guy made an excuse, saying he was worried about his health. To prevent her from asking more questions, he quickly said goodbye, but she was worried and already imagined he must be up to something. Meanwhile, our hero was thinking about Sasha. She said that because of his parents' last wish, he got that absurd amount of mana. Looking at his own hands, he imagined that maybe it was his destiny to protect humanity. All that because, when someone was about to die and made a wish, that wish could be passed to another person. So it was as if he was fulfilling his parents' wishes. That inherited will was with him. It wasn't just him and his sister who remained in this world. since his parents' mana was also with him. That was another reason for him to want to continue in that job. He returned to that training barrier of Sorong, but now the barrier was much bigger. They made the barrier to prevent people from entering within a 500-meter radius. And all of that would be for him to learn to better control his mana. He looked kind of suspiciously at Sorong. "Stop moving, kid. I'm measuring your physical conditions." "Ah, okay, sorry." He heard this female voice coming from the cat and even thought he had already heard it somewhere else. Sasha appears, saying good morning, saying that now the practical training will begin. He didn't know anything about fighting monsters and asks how this would help, but the girl tells him not to worry about that kind of thing. While a cat comes running, Sasha said that they would already start training a fight against the monster, and the cat jumps in the direction of our hero. Wait a minute, why is there a cat here? He remembered that black cat, and it was the same kitten that put the card in his notebook. The kitten introduces itself, and it was really cute. Even Sasha mentions that he had already seen this cat before, and the kitten's name was Dancel Pio. She was a spiritual beast that made sinners confess the truth. When she bit the person, they ended up saying what they were thinking. Wait a minute, she bites people? But Sasha tells him not to worry about that. Since he had a powerful and pure mana, he didn't represent risks, and the kitten keeps licking his finger. The guy asks if it was safe, and she said yes, and the kitten bit his finger. Even though he had pure mana, he had already entered a combat state, and not a defense state, and that's why the kitten ended up biting his finger, only to test, to see if he really was a good person. At that moment, he ended up screaming in pain, and as it made the person tell the truth, he admitted that he kept looking at Sasha's beautiful legs. That ended up making Sorong angry, saying that this guy was shameless. He flicked the cat's head, which let go of his finger, and he still got mad because that cat suddenly attacked his body. A little shyly, Sasha asked what he thought was so great about her legs. "Wait a minute, I talked about your legs. I didn't even notice." And meanwhile, Sasha kept telling Pio to keep biting Lee to death, remembering that the kitten was a demonic cat, and kept suspecting, thinking that this boy was worthless. However, Sasha calms them, saying that the boy was in training phase, and also says that in today's training they would do some mana enhancements. But it was for him to stay calm, because the initial training would be less dangerous. But the guy wasn't really trusting folks, he was wary. Especially because look at the friendly face of that kitten. Sorong tells the cat to finish him, and the cat jumps. He was very fast, but our hero was willing to face him head on. A few minutes pass and our protagonist lost the battle, ending up with his body full of scratches. Sasha says that he didn't even wait for her to finish the explanations and already started the battle. And petting Pio, she tells the kitten to go easy. Lee wasn't familiar with combat, so it was to go easy on him. Putting the kitten back on the ground, she says to try again, and after joining her hands, she casts a new spell. She was summoning a new mobile barrier that kept chasing Lee. That way he could move freely. The girl snaps her fingers and said she changed the training barrier mode to sparking mode. That way he would have a spiritual body and would not suffer physical damage. His hand was glowing while he thought of a strategy. And with that he materializes a cat toy. That ends up activating a ferocious form of the kitten. And Sorong there in the office keeps saying that the boy is an idiot and that he should put that away right now. But it was too late. The kitten managed to grab the toy, but now he was out of control. Little Dancel Pio would get explosive instincts when he saw cat toys. The kitten's eyes even change color. And our hero starts screaming desperately. He throws the toy on the ground and runs away as if there were no tomorrow. Instead of helping, Sasha stays there laughing, saying that Lee was very funny and the kid was running away from a little kitten. Sorong appears there in robot form and keeps saying that that 3-week training was worth it. That's because the guy was managing to run away from that cat that was very fast. However, he should think of a strategy to defeat it. Since he had changed defense attributes to attack attributes, he could indeed defeat any kind of demon. He just needed to manage to control the correct strategy. While the kitten chases him, Sorong explains that there are 3 types of attributes, but Pio ends up interrupting, jumping at our hero. The guy manages to dodge that attack, and Sorong explains that the first attribute is the UI attribute. He was already getting pissed off with all those explanations. The UI attribute served to enhance physical conditioning, and Sorong said that he wouldn't be able to use that now. But why won't I be able to use it? What kind of crappy training is this? At that moment, the cat shoots a fire blast, and he manages to dodge. He didn't realize it, but he was already using energy. UI. That's why he managed to dodge the kitten. Wait a minute, that cat can also shoot fire rays from its mouth. The second attribute would be the G attribute, which is the type of energy for element manifestation and also summons. The kitten shows that he is a true master, and starts evaporating all the water by releasing its fire jet. Wait a minute, he managed to evaporate all that puddle of water with just one flame. I think you guys want to kill me here in this training. The little robot was giving so much information that Lee got angry, saying to give him a summary after this training. It was too much happening at the same time. It was the little robot talking, and the cat trying to kill him with all its strength. He realized that the cat was taking this fight very seriously. And finally, Sorong explains the third attribute called the Shin attribute, which was basically support spells. He didn't want to know about any of that. The only thing he thought about was getting out alive. After explaining all the concepts, the little robot keeps saying that now he could use his mana. Now that he knew the base, more or less, of the attributes, he could come up with a better strategy. Even when he didn't know any base, he managed to make a weapon, but now he could manifest other things. She wasn't going to detail everything he could do. The guy would have to use his own imagination, but he wouldn't have much time because the kitten was already making some magic circles. Our hero realized that the kitten was using UI energy to strengthen itself and also Shin energy to summon a giant hand. He asked Sasha if that wasn't too dangerous, and Sorong, who was by his side, said for him to stay calm because any injury would be healed. Ah, okay, so even if I get dismembered, I won't die, right? Is that true? Do you promise me? At that moment, he ends up taking a huge hit from that cat and flies far away, destroying all the ground. He realized that the blow was very strong, but he wasn't completely finished. Wait, is she going to attack me again? The kitten was not giving any rest. If I keep going like this, I'm going to be turned into a punching bag. And with that, he thought about the thing cats hated the most. But there wouldn't be enough time to summon what he was thinking, because the cat had already prepared another attack. So he summoned a shield to defend himself. Sorang was surprised, because he acted very fast. Turns out this boy isn't as bad as I thought. Sasha said that Lee was doing a great job. He managed to withstand 2 attacks from Little Pio. Now he tries to make another manifestation. He already had the shield and ended up manifesting a machine gun. Sasha, who was watching that, said that the guy was very talented, because he made 2 manifestations at the same time. Not just anyone could manifest 2 weapons. If it was a sword and a shield, which was very simple, she could even understand, but he was manifesting a machine gun and was even pleased, saying that his learning curve was extraordinary. Modern weapons had a much greater destructive power than old weapons. It seems that the guy was regarded as if he were a prodigy. Placing the weapon in the space of the shield, he prepared to shoot. But this weapon was weak against Pio because he was too fast. He realized that it was very difficult to aim at the kitten. Besides, he shortened the distance and tried to strike with those giant paws. Luckily, he managed to block again, but this time he was thrown far away, losing his shield and his weapon. As he had thought, it would not be so easy to defeat a kitten like that. So he would have to try another strategy. The cat stepped on that weapon and began to emanate his dark energy. Trying to reach that weapon, he said it was almost there. If I can grab it, I'm going to win. The kitten jumped on him, throwing the weapon even further back. But all of this was a strategy from Lee. The cat was in a disadvantaged position, and he began to materialize a waterfall falling from the sky, hitting the little cat directly. If there's one thing cats hate, it's water. And he realized that because the cat made a point of drying all the puddles of water, and with that, our hero had won, leaving the cat unconscious. The guy was really badass, folks, and so he even fainted with a smile. The kitten's soul almost left its body, and they locked him in a cage. Sorong commented that that guy was really amazing. Besides manifesting weapons, he could create elements. Not to mention he did that using the Shin attribute he had just learned. Sorong asked Sasha how he could do that so quickly, and she imagined that, when he used the Shin attribute, maybe his abilities extended beyond the realm of common talent. Later they began to heal Pio. That's because the kitten had gotten very stressed. She couldn't believe our hero was capable of manifesting such a great power, and even defeating Pio. He laughed, saying that it was luck and strategy, because the kitten didn't like water. He realized that when it began drying the water and knew he wouldn't be able to defeat it with a firearm because it was too fast. It was still too early for them to finish the training, and that's why Sasha was going to give him some tasks to finish at home and ended up handing him an encyclopedia of modern weapons with 3D modeling. If he could better understand how the weapons worked, he would be able to materialize them more precisely, and that would be good for him to be able to make more weapons and defeat a greater number of monsters. They would also take a 3-day break because he had spent too much mana, so this time would be necessary for him to recover. After all, if he used all his mana, he would start losing life. And he realized that it was just like in games. And they also told him to get ready, because within 3 days they would do their first mission together. And they also asked Sorong to show the photo of the person they were going to investigate. It was the photo of a woman who was the president of a large company. She was becoming the target of a mock doogie. And our hero kept asking what that meant. That meant that soon you and I would have our first battle as partners. Later the scene shifted to that woman's company. She was the president of a modeling agency, and was looking at the photo of some handsome guys. One of them had recently lost his grandfather, who was a famous man, and she could use that to get closer to him. Smiling, she prepared to call, saying that it was going to be fun playing with those two. She called Director King and asked him to pass her the contact of the guy from photo number 3 and number 8. The man on the other end of the line said they were busy on a tour, but she didn't want to hear any of it. She had a hobby, exploiting those young men and then ruining their reputations. She got angry because the director said the guys couldn't get in touch with her. That left the woman irritated, looking for her next victim. She grabbed her bag and asked Secretary Park to tell the driver to prepare the car right away because she was already going to the club. As she approached the elevator, She was fiddling with her bag and checked to see if her little bag of white powder was full and already started laughing. I don't know if it was illicit products she was using, or if it was something to adulterate her victims, but the Mokdugi was there watching the woman. Since she committed many negative actions, her mana was weakening, and therefore she became an easy target for those monsters. Miss Summer even gave a little laugh, saying it was almost time to devour that woman. The next day, our hero was there studying that weapons encyclopedia. The Lel and G attribute techniques were very difficult for him to handle. After studying a lot, he ended up putting the book away. In order to strengthen his body, he would need to infuse mana into his spinal cord. He was going to train that a little, and check to see if his sister wasn't listening. Soon after, he charged energy into his hands, and in an almost easy way, managed to make a small weapon. As Sasha had said, he would be able to recover his power if he rested. That was because he had exhausted all his mana during that training. But now that time had passed, he was brand new again to do other private training. And when he opened the curtain, there was his sister. He did not expect to meet her, especially dressed like that. The girl asked where he was going at that hour of the night, wearing a suit, and he made up an excuse saying it was the funeral of a friend's grandfather. Wait a second, you don't have friends? It's just that I made this friend recently. Do you know the name of this friend? Well, his name is Pio. Anyway, I'll be back soon. See you later. Bye, sister. Send my condolences to them. Pio? What a weird name. There was our hero meeting with Sasha to investigate that woman. First of all, they went to the restaurant at the bottom of the hotel. Since it was the first mission, he was nervous, but she kept trying to reassure him. I'm not nervous, I swear, I'm not nervous. He said that, but he was trembling all over, afraid to face a Mokdugi. He would need to calm down because the victim would be arriving soon. That's why they were there pretending. At that moment, he noticed something interesting in the magazine. He saw that the clothes there were extremely expensive, costing $50. And when he looked at Sasha, he noticed something even more peculiar. Her clothes were exactly the same as the ones in the magazine. Every time we meet, you're wearing different clothes, right? She said that her secretary made clothes that matched the fashion of that world. The secretary was Sorang, who kept cursing at him through the little robot. The blonde girl kept analyzing fashion magazines to make very beautiful clothes for her master. And the guy blushed, saying that Sasha dressed very well, that he liked her style. Laughing, the girl said that her secretary would be very happy to know about that compliment. But she called Lee's attention, telling him to focus, because the Mokdugi's prey had just arrived. It was a despicable human who did many bad things. That's why her mana level was very low. He asked where, and she said she was at the hotel entrance. The woman was approaching. Her name was Jo Henry. She was 39 years old and was accompanied by a very young guy. Lee asked who that guy beside her was, and Sasha said it was her current prey. She accumulated evil deeds because she kept blackmailing those young men. She selected people who were aspiring celebrities, and after using them, ended up discarding the poor fellows. She did that only out of malice, because she had the desire to manipulate people. And since she was part of an agency, she controlled the media to speak badly about those people. Because of those negative deeds, she had greatly lowered the quality of her soul, and therefore lost the defensive capacity of her mana. Sasha said that's exactly it, and even humans who are strong and usually mistreat others can become weak because of those bad actions, and that opens the way for Mokdugi to devour people. In other words, they are easy prey for those demons. Our boy asked if he should already intervene and help the woman, but she said no, that they should wait. She stood up, grabbed her clipboard, and said that they had 30 minutes left and should follow that woman. For now, she was not sensing signs of the Mokdugi inside the barrier. The woman, along with her prey, went to an elevator, and as it was closing, Sasha asked permission to hold the door. They entered the place and pressed the button. The three of them were together inside the elevator. The woman looked with a slightly interested face. At Sasha, the girl turned to Lee and asked if their room was also on the 12th floor. At that moment, the woman introduced herself, saying that she was part of an agency and really liked Sasha's style, even handed her a card asking if she wanted to become famous. She said she had a good eye for stars and that Sasha could become an incredible idol. Smiling, Sasha thanked her for the offer. However, she was going to marry this handsome man, and because of that, those dreams of becoming an idol would not be possible. The look on our protagonist's face gave a slightly embarrassed smile. The woman said that was a pity, and the boy stayed in the back trying to keep himself under control. The woman turned to the boy and started scolding him, saying he shouldn't be eating things with too many calories, and even asked him to get a coffee from a specific brand. And the guy was shocked because that brand belonged to her ex-boyfriend. Smiling, she asked if that was a problem and still said he was going to be in trouble and lose that brand, since the guy did very bad things. We see that this woman really only liked to manipulate people, and even Lee realized that she did not deserve to be saved. They reached the 12th floor and each went to a different side of the corridor. The goddesses could not know exactly when the person was going to die, only when the mana was going to end. Sasha said that's exactly it. It wasn't possible to know exactly the cause of death. That was because no one knew the future, and much less could make a determined expectation. The only thing they knew was that the woman's mana was going to end in this hotel around midnight 15. But since this region was not full of reapers, Sasha said that probably there would not be many deaths. Lee began connecting the dots to try to understand what he could figure out with that information. His idea was that only that woman would die that night. That's why there was no Reaper. And since she was predestined to die, maybe it wasn't even a Makdugi that would eliminate her, since she had acquired many enemies because of her bad attitudes. Wait a second. So if she is going to die today, but not by a Makdugi, then maybe that guy will try to do it. We have to stop it. And it's not even for the woman's life, but to stop that guy from becoming a murderer. Sasha said that he understood very well, but he had to make a choice. If he decided to save her from being eliminated by that guy, then he would have to fight against the Makdugi. But if by chance he let the murder happen, he would only have to fight to make sure her soul would not be taken to the wrong place. In other words, it would be easier to let someone eliminate the woman and only guide her soul to hell. That's why he had to make that choice. Not prevent the death and collect the soul, or prevent the death and fight against a Makdugi. The boy was thoughtful, because both options were complicated. Sasha said that if by chance they wanted to save that woman, they would need to reveal their information first. That way the Makdugi, who had that woman as a target, would start aiming at the two of them. That was because when they revealed themselves to a person as spiritual agents, that gave the Makdugi the right to attack them. That's why he had to think of the best possible choice. The boy took a deep breath. Since it wasn't possible to know the exact place and exact time of death, then there was a chance to save her. And he was sure of that because she confirmed it moments before. Our boy didn't want to save that woman exclusively out of compassion. What he really wanted was to stop someone from becoming a murderer. So he ended up grabbing Sasha's shoulders tightly and asked if there really was a chance that the woman wouldn't be killed by a person. He thought it was much better for her to be killed by a Makdugi than to be killed by a murderer. But maybe he could stop both. She would not die at all. Just having low mana was not a guarantee that a person would lose their life. This woman really deserved death. But that didn't mean the people who had been victims of her should be doomed to sin. And that was what he wanted to prevent. He didn't want those victims to act impulsively and ruin the rest of their lives. And he kept saying all these things, holding Sasha's shoulder tightly. Lee would try to save both people, both the would-be murderer and Miss Joe Henry. Our boy, he was a very good person, and even if someone was bad, he believed that person deserved to live. Upon hearing these words, Sasha smiled and said that since this was his choice, she would respect it. In this way, they made their way to the woman's room. Our boy was dying of embarrassment because he was still holding Sasha's arm. He even wondered if she felt offended, but in reality, she had grabbed his arm first in the elevator. Could she think I had improper intentions? Well, it's not like that's a lie. The girl looked at him with a mischievous expression. My daughter, we already know you like him. She said that he cared about the idols. This showed that he was a very empathetic person. He said yes and managed to escape, saying that it was really nice to have held her shoulder. Wait, shoulders? What are you talking about? Ah, no, it's nothing. But wait, can you read minds? Do you want me to read your mind? No need. Thank you very much. She also explained that Lee's good heart gave him an important advantage in the fight against monsters. That's because when a person does many good deeds, it ends up strengthening the mana present in their body. He wasn't even paying attention to these things she was saying. Did she read my thoughts? I guess it's good I keep my thoughts in order. Wow, I had so many shameless thoughts around her. She must have heard everything. Sasha still hadn't sensed any signs that a Mokdugi had passed the barrier. And thinking about that wolf, he remembered that when he first encountered it, they were teleported to another dimension. That was because these creatures hid in the shadows and weren't visible all the time in this world. And when they were about to start hunting, they released this barrier. All of this to separate space and time. Sasha explained that he could stay hours and hours inside that barrier, but in the real world only a few milliseconds would have passed, and they could identify when the Mokdugi was near, because they would exit a barrier like that and end up emanating a dark energy. At that moment, the guy who was with the old woman ran down the corridor. Sasha already imagined that another idol had come to take revenge on the woman. She ended up casting a spell on that guy so he couldn't escape, and immediately he became sleepy and paralyzed. Our hero was surprised, since she had so many spells. Next, Sasha told Sorong to erase that guy's memories and send him home, saying, "Yes, mistress." She went immediately. Using a light magic spell, she ordered the guy to completely forget what had happened and go straight home. And it seemed exactly what they had suspected happened. An idol had gone there to try to take revenge on that old woman. Agreeing with this, Our Lady said that they needed to go quickly. Upon reaching the room, they realized it was locked. He was imagining what kind of weapon he should create to destroy that door. He even started to materialize an axe to break the entire door. But Sasha was much better prepared and melted the entire doorknob. The guy was surprised because every moment she presented a new spell. You can come in, but be careful because it's still hot. Our boy went inside saying he was room service. However, he heard a cry for help. There was a hooded man on top of the woman trying to eliminate her. He was saying he would finish off this evil woman because she had ruined his life. Our hero went there and pulled the guy off the woman. "Let me go. This woman ruined my life. If you don't let me go, I'll eliminate you too." Sasha entered the room and realized the old woman was almost dying from lack of air. Lee tried to calm the guy, saying he would ruin his own life even more if he did something like that. Meanwhile, the old woman was cursing the boy with every name imaginable. When she looked forward, she realized that the girl from the elevator was there and even thought they were conspiring with this idol, and she immediately began threatening the guy who had just saved her life. If I were our protagonist, I'd let that boy go at her. He was saying that this old woman had manipulated the media to say he had used illicit products, and she defended herself, saying she hadn't manipulated any media and it wasn't her fault he was found with those products in the car. And she already started acting crazy, saying she would ruin his life because he tried to attack her. Hey old lady, help out too. Stop provoking the boy. She kept provoking, saying he had no talent at all and now was trying to get revenge on her because he was a failure. The boy desperately wanted to go after the old woman, but our hero was holding him back. He even told the boy that he couldn't attack this woman because she was going to die today anyway, and everyone there was shocked. The people turned to him and asked what the hell he was saying. At that moment, Sasha placed a seal on the boy. Immediately, he began losing consciousness. The guy looked like a zombie, all sleepwalking. The woman asked what they had done to this guy, and if by any chance they were mediums. Lee apologized very quietly, since he said something he shouldn't have, and then explained that they were agents from beyond. What, from beyond? What do you mean? She then started laughing like crazy. She thought they were prosecutors and were there because she had committed various crimes. But it was useless. She would never be arrested because she had excellent lawyers. It's no use trying to defend yourself. The place where you'll be judged is below all of us. The woman didn't understand what Sasha had just said, and when she noticed that the boy was disappearing, she was already in shock. What had happened was that the Mokdu had passed through the barrier. A portal began to open inside that room, and a gust of wind blew their hair back. In a serious tone, Sasha told him to make a mana shield in front of her. She was sensing a malicious intent, so he had to make a shield capable of protecting all three of them. She immediately grabbed the little paper from her clipboard and slapped that seal on the old woman's face. If she didn't want her soul to be taken by the demons, she had to remain silent. They would give their best to ensure her energy reached hell safely. The woman ended up fainting in Sasha's arms, and after placing her under the bed, our hero already had the shields deployed. At that moment, he realized that a shot hit the shield and pointed the passenger there like a fool. What had pierced the shield was not a simple bullet, but a knife. Hey, duck down. Are you crazy? Sticking your head out there. Get ready, this is just the beginning. The glass started breaking and numerous blades were thrown into the room. The boy kept saying that the shield was being pushed backward. And really guys, it was a rain of blades. Some of them passed through the shield, injuring his body. And Sasha, right next to him, noticed that he was quite resilient. Hey Sasha, is there any work compensation? Or better, life insurance? If there is, put my sister as the beneficiary. She performed a spell, opening a portal and summoning the mirror that reflects demons. In this way, the blades were stopped in the air. That magical mirror could reflect everything under 10 inches long. And after she did that, the blades were stopped in mid-air. The boy asked if it was over yet. While waiting, they were tense, wondering what kind of monster was coming. Two people appeared, saying that this newbie's mana was truly magnificent. It was Miss Summer, saying she was impressed with this newbie, and even made a joke, saying he had made an excessively large shield. Feigning sympathy, Summer said that if Sasha simply handed over that woman, they would leave. He recognized Summer, who was that cat demon. But our hero wasn't kidding around. He already thrust the gun outward and began firing multiple shots, saying there would be no negotiation. The cat was very tricky and managed to dodge. Pointing his face out of the wall, he said he only came to talk and that this newbie was very cruel. They had heard that this boy could manifest 2 mana weapons simultaneously, but the bald guy said that didn't matter because he would defeat that boy, no matter the cost. And he kept telling the cat not to interfere because he had promised to give him all the honor and credit. The girl agreed, and the guy laughed evilly. In fact, he was a colony of rats. Our hero realized that some shots he fired at that guy ended up releasing dead little rats on the floor. But the guy said it didn't matter how many shots they took, they would never be defeated. Poor hero. I think this is the worst CLT job anyone could have. Countless rats charged at our hero, and he shot them all and even started asking Sasha for help, saying he couldn't defeat them all. The rat was very close to reaching him, but those magical bullets caused massive damage to the little rats. At that moment, a magical circle appeared, and a strong light fell on them. It was Sasha doing that to push them away. Next, she pulled out another little paper, and by touching the shield, created a magical barrier. The rats gathered behind that barrier, and the colony leader told them to start gnawing, as they would soon break it. Sasha said that barrier wouldn't last long because those rats could gnaw through magic. She was even going to place another defensive barrier in the next room. The leader of the rats, who had a little collar, kept giving orders, and the two fled as fast as possible. I'm sure he thought, facing a wolf is fine, but a horde of rats? That's unfair. Summer was back there observing the battle. They were managing to gnaw through the barrier very quickly. Meanwhile, the cat was restraining herself from interfering in the fight. Sasha, along with Lee, was already reaching the other room. The girl kicked the door, breaking everything. They would need to escape because the rats were already approaching. There were the little rats, almost breaking the barrier. The boy aimed his weapon at the other apartment and got ready. He asked if she couldn't use that mirror to slow down the rats, but she said those weren't projectiles. Wait, you're telling me that each of those little rats is a bakdug? Yes, exactly. They were part of a colony. They were individual beings living in a colony, but seemed to perform very well as a group. It was as if they all shared a single consciousness. She pulled another paper from her clipboard, and then cast multiple seals into the air. That was to generate an even more powerful protective barrier, and she succeeded, blocking that door. Next, she asked if he could manifest a weapon that could deal more damage to those creatures. He thought about it for a bit, but at that moment couldn't think of another weapon. He had even read that encyclopedia of weapons, but hadn't memorized all the objects. She knew that would be too much for his mind. But one way for him to create more complex and powerful weapons was by performing a sort of power unlocking. The boy said it was fine. She could do it, no problem at all, since they would die if they stayed there. It would be risky. So she asked him to sit on that bed. The little rats were almost breaking the first barrier, and the leader kept ordering them not to stop for even a second. Sasha explained that by unlocking his mind, the boy would be able to use 100% of his brain capacity, and thus manifest a more powerful weapon and strengthen his mana cultivation, but it was very risky. Unlike the usual weapon manifestation, which used a small mana base, this mental release unleashed much more mana. In other words, if he maxed out his mana limit, he could die. This technique was called hyper-awakening. The boy was sweating, but had no other choice. If they didn't do this, those rats could devour them alive. Sasha explained that to use hyper-awakening on his brain, he needed a mind free of negative thoughts. From now on, he was to have happy thoughts, and she kept touching the young man's head. While doing this, the boy tried to think as much as possible about happy and joyful things. The first thing he thought of was becoming a millionaire, and then curing his sister's body paralysis. All of this was making him extremely happy, with rosy cheeks. Sasha said he was doing very well, and now should think of even happier things. Things he truly desired. One thing he really wanted was to have a normal family, and he already imagined coming home from work with Sasha there in his house. In a seductive way, she would welcome him around. I confess that I'm not sure if she knew these things I was thinking, but she says I'm doing well. Another happy thing I think about is having 2 children with her, a boy and a girl, and also some pets to help with the kids' social upbringing. Sasha mentions that he was having very happy thoughts, so the hyper-awakening is working better than she thought. She couldn't believe he reached this hyper-awakening so quickly. And the boy stays there thinking about these little things with Sasha. He imagines building a super happy family beside her. Now that the mana concentration worked, she says she will awaken and he must use all the concentration at once. So he imagines her speaking live to him, calling him dear husband. In his imagination, she sits on him, saying she would like to have a 3rd child, and asks if he would agree. And of course the guy says yes. And so they would begin the process of having another little child. Look at the shameless look on the guy's face. The thought was so happy that the guy transcended. Miss Summer was there, watching the rats breaking the barrier, and even comments that she was getting bored since it was taking them long to break it. And with the knife in hand, she wonders how long they would hold out when the rats broke the barrier. They were almost there. Just a few more seconds. With rosy cheeks, Sasha says this is very impressive. She couldn't believe it. The boy had managed hyper-awakening using his brain with mana. At that moment, the rats break the barrier and all pass through at once. Next, they gather at the second barrier made in the room and start eating it little by little. But at that moment, a jet of fire sweeps all of them. Not even that could make the little rats give up. The leader orders all of them to gnaw as fast as possible, and at that moment they manage to make a hole in the purple barrier. In the middle of the hole, a bomb hits a rat on the head. Everyone is shocked by that bomb, and even asks what the hell it was. At that moment, the bomb explodes, sending the rat flying everywhere. The leader realizes the boy managed to manifest a more powerful weapon, and the rat that exploded turned to dust. Even Summer comments that the guy is using very interesting weapons, to say the least. And our boy doesn't stop. He starts launching bombs one after another. The rat begins to panic, because this causes much more destruction. He orders all the rats to scatter because they don't want to be eliminated. But our protagonist wasn't joking, guys. Look at how many bombs he launched. The little rat just stands there, not understanding anything. Then the leader orders everyone to protect themselves, and some rats sacrifice themselves, jumping in front of the bomb to be exploded. They do it without thinking twice. Sasha was holding a medallion, and that very strong explosion happens while the leader stays protected. It's always like that, right? The leader uses his minions as cannon fodder. A quick light passes during the bombs, making them explode, causing a stronger blast than the previous ones. Summer notices that Sasha was using the demon reflection mirror to detonate those bombs, and most of the little rats that entered the room were defeated. Now that the bombs stopped, the leader tells them not to retreat and to charge again. Our hero was there, making multiple bombs and throwing them through the barrier hole. He does it again. However, the rats jump in the air trying to block the explosion. I confess, there were moments I felt sorry for these little rats. They end up exploding while the other rats try to climb the barrier. At that moment, they notice a kind of white smoke fire, and they start writhing, complaining in pain. Summer lands in the room, finding this very interesting. This is because demons were weak against this type of white fire, and she also mentions that the boy was surprising her. With every passing moment, he uses a new technique. Yes, our protagonist looks silly, acts silly, but he is not silly. Summer said she promised not to interfere, but she couldn't help it. If she did nothing, they would be humiliatedly defeated. That white phosphorus smoke was spreading, and Sasha told him to prepare for the final weapon. He didn't have much mana left, so he had to be careful. Our boy knew that if he used too much mana and ran out, he could die. So concentrating, he prepares to create the final weapon. The rat was seething with hatred and orders all the others to try to extinguish that white flame. They start biting their own bodies. Little by little, they manage to put out the fire, and with a hopeful smile, the little rat said they still had a chance to win. But, unexpectedly, they are trapped inside a barrier. The rats had no way out, no escape. Sasha passes through that barrier, saying the rats were naive for staying grouped. That was exactly what she wanted, to have them all together to trap them. Cursing Sasha to the 7th generation, the little rat says they fell into an ambush, but no matter what, they would never give up. Our hero finally finishes materializing his weapon, a powerful flamethrower. When he saw that weapon, the little rat began sweating cold. Yeah, kid, I don't think you have a chance to win anymore. Just looking at the scene, you can already tell what they're planning, guys. No need to explain. At that moment, Summer appears, saying they were cheating. Holding a knife, she admits she had no intention to get involved in the fight, but changed her mind and comments that this newbie urgently needs to be defeated. She throws the knife, but Sasha steps in with her protective barrier, and the little cat even says that these simplified protective barriers are worthless. If they don't want to be pierced by knives, they should get out of the way. The girl just watches him say these things. She throws her clipboard on the floor and says that even if he were a martial artist, she was also very powerful. She activates her power, and the boy starts throwing a bunch of blades. Very skillfully, she manages to block all those attacks. Our protagonist is almost hit, but she manages to hold him. Miss Summer is sweating cold, as she realizes that Sasha is really very talented, and our hero asks what kind of woman that was. Seems like the gods value their partners a lot, don't they? He couldn't land a single stab, and the girl jokes that they are short-staffed, so they value the humans who work with them. At that moment, Miss Summer decides to leave, taking the rats, and says that the Mokdugi are also very valuable, so she couldn't leave any behind. But the little rat didn't want to give up. It keeps telling Miss Summer to let it go, because it's going to finish off those humans. Be quiet, you idiots, you lost. And the poor little rat stays there all downcast. I confess I felt sorry for them at that moment. Summer ends up hearing that woman, the old lady, coming out from inside the barrier. This was a perfect opportunity, as he could attack the woman and take her soul. Even Lee realized the woman was in danger, and taking advantage of the chance, the cat wasn't going to slack off and went after that woman, throwing the rats. Several blades and rats were going at her, but Sasha was also powerful and kicks the woman in the head. The kick is so strong that it sends her back into the barrier, but those knives catch Sasha's hair bow. All this so she looks stylish, with her hair in the wind. Lee also steps in to protect, and with the movement manages to grab his dear waifu. The girl sees that Lee is attentive, and immediately pulls a paper from her clipboard, summoning a new barrier spell to protect the woman. This would be a much more powerful barrier. In a few moments, a blue barrier surrounds the woman. Since this barrier was even more protective, it wouldn't last long, so they had to stay alert so that the Mokdugi wouldn't attack her. As the barrier would last only a few minutes, they needed to remain attentive so the Mokdugi wouldn't wait for the right moment. Waving the knife, Summer jokes, saying the barrier won't even last 3 minutes. He takes his blade and tries to hit the barrier, realizing it was indeed much more powerful. Upon realizing that Sasha was capable of making sacred barriers, he understood why Night Frost had lost. Not even gods could break a barrier like that. He also comments that the girl is very cute. Biting the blade, he says this barrier is much taller than he imagined. However, this barrier only blocked supernatural beings and did not prevent humans from coming out. He keeps touching the glass, and the woman stands up complaining of a headache. As Summer was very clever, she starts pretending, trying to make the woman come out. She pretended to be a hotel employee and asked the woman to follow her. Deep down, all he wanted was to suck her soul. But Summer was there playing the role of the butler. The old lady said she had never seen that guy and asked why he acted that way. At this point, it's not clear if Summer is male or female, so we'll treat them differently at each moment. After saying a few words, the woman starts taking some steps forward. Sasha shouts, asking the woman not to move. Looking at that couple, the woman thought they were prosecutors investigating her. Our hero also tries to fool the woman, saying he is one of the idols hired by her. Since she was somewhat in shock, she didn't know if it was real. Both the protagonist and Summer try to convince the old lady that they were employees of her company. Lee even says he auditioned, and the old lady said he was very cute, so she hired him. As the old lady said he wasn't cute at all, he started preparing a spell to convince her. After putting a little bow on his head, he asks if he isn't cute. My god, guys, what secondhand embarrassment. Even the woman was left speechless, frowning, and said the boy wasn't cute at all, while Summer laughed in the background. Luckily for the boy, Sasha approaches and says she found him very cute. Seeing that Sasha agreed, the woman turns, saying he really was a little cute. At that moment, Summer thrusts a blade at the barrier. He was just testing to see if the barrier had already ended. A piece of the knife manages to pass through and cuts the woman's cheek. At that moment, she falls scared. The cat tells the rat that it's time to leave. She had no patience to wait for that old lady to die, much less wait for the barrier to disappear. After activating a spell, he admits that he failed the hunt. Our hero was surprised, as the Mokdugi were leaving, without patience to fight. At that moment, our hero deactivates the white fire power, and the little rats stop burning. Not even the rats could believe they were freed from that suffering. Summer asks, why did the human do that? It wasn't common for humans to show mercy to monsters like them. If the battle is over, there's no need for this pointless suffering, and I can be fighting you, but I won't dare. Striking a kitten pose, Summer says he is very cute, and, even though dangerous, lets the demons survive. For him that didn't matter, because in the next battle he would make sure to burn all the monsters. Summer laughs, saying the boy is very interesting, and as she says goodbye tells everyone to take care, as she will return soon. Casting a spell, she teleports back to the demon world. At first she imagined the boy would be careless, but she saw he formed a great team with Sasha. Lee would be sure that she would remember his scent. The little rats were all limping and teleported away. Sasha also undoes the barrier spell. Lee asks what they should do with the unconscious woman. Next, he apologizes for letting the rats go. But she liked that he said he didn't hate the Mokdugi, so she was very happy with him. The boy was sweating cold, thinking he had done something wrong. The girl said that it really didn't make sense to leave the Mokdugi suffering, and was happy that he had shown empathy, even with demons. Sasha also thought he did that to show he was an honorable warrior, in the same way Nightfrost had acted, fulfilling the contract. Wow, she thinks I'm a super decent human being, and I wasn't even thinking about that. Sasha imagines he did it because he is an honorable warrior, but our protagonist wasn't paying attention to those things at all. It's true. It's true. I really was thinking about all of this. You see that I have a very soft heart. Please, Sasha, don't read my mind. Think of a slick kid. Sasha says that him saving the demons today could be a boost in a future fight, but still his soul is kind. While touching his chest, she says that our protagonist's heart will make his soul stronger and stronger. This is because generally kind people are the most powerful. He is surprised to hear her words, and the girl continues saying that kind people like him end up enchanting her. My boy, I think that was a declaration of love. Meanwhile, the little rats were there, carrying each other and fleeing the place. The rat leader felt very bad for having been defeated, but Summer told them not to blame themselves, as they had fought in an exemplary way. They felt no shame and didn't retreat. The little rat feels very flattered, having been praised. Moreover, that human doesn't fight with spears or swords. They use modern weapons against which we are weak. I feel that from now on things are going to get more interesting. Next, Sorong was there erasing the memories of that guy who tried to kill the old lady. The woman still hadn't woken up, and after erasing the boy's memories, she orders him to go home. She did all of this straight from the office and passed the information to Sasha, our dear goddess. She also congratulates Sorong. At that moment, our hero's phone rings, and it's a message from his sister. She asked him to buy a toothbrush, because hers had broken. He wonders what the hell she was doing to break a toothbrush. I can't even imagine what this girl was doing at this hour of the night, guys. At that moment, Sorong tells Sasha that that woman, Jor, had just passed away. The boy asks the cause of death, and Sorong starts getting mad at him. Who do you think you are, you bastard? Asking this kind of thing, you are nobody. You just got here. Poor Lee didn't want to be rude, so he keeps apologizing. Sorong gives him a moral lesson, saying that she is Sasha's first disciple, so he shouldn't get conceited. The girl was jealous, guys. When Sasha asks what happened for the old lady to lose her life, Sorong is very happy to give the information. She said that the cause of death was acute respiratory failure. Because of the hallucinations she had, having witnessed everything recently, she ended up taking some strong medicines that were in her bag, most likely illegal. Our hero realizes that, in the end, she was already destined to die, so there wasn't much to do. He even jokes, saying that maybe his work wasn't worth that much. It was just a joke, but Sorong got very mad, giving the biggest moral lesson for the second time. She also said that this boy knows nothing. She, on the contrary, had been there a long time as Sasha's ally, so the boy shouldn't get conceited. To try to calm her disciple, Sasha says that when she returns, she will bring ice cream. This makes the little blonde very excited, saying that Master Sasha is the best of all. At that moment, her little robot simply disappears. I think Sorong doesn't like humans very much, right? But Sasha says it's nothing like that. She's just excited to have another companion. And so they decide to go to a convenience store to buy ice cream. Our hero goes along with her, since he needed to buy the toothbrush for his sister. That convenience store was the only one open at that hour of the night. The hero arrives there and is a bit thoughtful. He wanted to buy some hair clips for Sasha, since hers had been cut by the blades. But he felt a bit embarrassed to give her a gift like that. Meanwhile, Sasha was at the display trying to choose the ice cream flavor. She opens the door gracefully and ends up choosing a celebratory drink. After choosing some ice creams, she says she will buy one for Lee's sister, and giving it to him says it's a bonus for his high performance. Since he also got a gift, he feels more comfortable buying the clips for her. Giving an awkward smile, he says that his sister will really like it, since the ice cream was strawberry. Upon leaving the store, Sasha asks him to accompany her to the bus stop. The boy goes along, while the girl compliments his first mission. He should be tired from the first hard day of work, but there was something she wanted to talk about: retirement. In conventional jobs, people retire based on years of service, but in this work of fighting the Makdugi, retirement worked differently. Looking at him, she said that retirement was basically death. It was very difficult for someone in his position to live for a long time, so he could run away whenever he felt in danger. When he noticed the combat was getting dangerous, it wasn't shameful to flee, because nothing was more important than human life, so he couldn't keep risking himself. I think she's saying this, guys, just because she likes him, but Lee stays quietly listening to everything. In fact, he needed money to pay for his sister's treatment. He didn't know the motivation of the other hunters, but his motivation was to save his little sister's life. Sasha says she doesn't really know the reason why the other guardians work for so long. She had received a higher rank and meanwhile fought many monsters and did this work for a long time. But after receiving another promotion to fight the Makdugi, who are these demons, she had to have an ally, and this is the first time she has a human as a partner. She had never fought these demons alone. Upon hearing that he was her first companion, the boy became very emotional. For those who didn't understand, guys, goddesses don't fight these Makdugi. They can fight other normal monsters, but not the Makdugi. That's why they need human allies, because only humans have the mana necessary to defeat these creatures without damaging one of them. Standing under the sky, the girl says she really hopes his retirement comes with time and not with death. She would even bet her divine life, saying she would do everything to keep him alive. It seemed like a declaration of love, and he even mentions that he couldn't say anything at that moment. He was only doing this work to earn enough money to pay the bills. There was no other noble reason, but now there was a new reason: Sasha's company. Yeah, guys, the boy is in love. He says he hopes to work with her, and the girl mentions that she is enjoying working with him, and so they continue walking to the bus stop. But there was something she wanted to do before they separated, and the guy was sweating cold. Li Dongjing, please, answer the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask this question. Excluding your brain and internal organs, which part of your body should you protect? What kind of question is this? My eyes? Really? Which eye exactly? Not understanding the question well, he says it's the right eye. She tears a small paper from her clipboard and says she is going to engrave it on his right eye. Wait a minute, engrave it inside my eye? She said it would be better to go to a dark place, because staying there in the middle of the street could attract attention. Wait, I think I made the wrong choice. Can I change my suggestion? Making a gesture with her hand, she said he couldn't. You're very tall, Mr. Lee. Could you bend a little? He bends, and she tells him to close his eyes. At that moment, she places that paper on his right eye, and then her hand on his face. She tells him to stay calm, that it won't hurt, and prepares to kiss him. She ends up kissing his eye, and the guy stands still, saying nothing. The kiss lasted a long time, and he felt discomfort in his right eye, leaving a star-shaped mark. At that moment, an absurd power began filling his body, and after falling to the ground, the girl said he would feel paralysis for about 3 minutes. I should have said lips. She kissed my eye. I should have said lips. She said he would probably be surprised, but all of this would pass quickly. Since the old lady had died, Sorong said Sasha needed to return quickly to take care of the paperwork. As there wouldn't be time to help the hero, she apologized, saying she had to leave. It would take about 3 days for him to be fully recovered, so the training would be in exactly 3 days. She gives him the ice cream and says she used her magic so it wouldn't melt. The woman leaves, leaving the poor guy lying in the middle of the street, guys. Ah, no, man, move to the other side. She doesn't have any consideration for you, no. He asks her to wait, showing the hair elastics he bought at the store. The poor guy couldn't speak properly, and even cried because of the pain in his eye. She picks up the hair elastic and remembers it was cut by Summer's knives. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't find this gift delivery very romantic. She crouches down, saying it's the first human gift she has received, and she's very happy. Slapping the ground, he knew she would like it, since women like presents, and thinks she must already be 90% won over. It wasn't in the most romantic way, but it worked. During the moonlight, he stays on the ground thinking that now he should think about the names of the children they could have. While they were at the bus stop, she talks to Sorong. She tells her assistant to send a letter to the Nine Heavens Fairy Sword Pavilion, requesting a loan and authorization. This is because they would need to use a sacred sword in the next battle. It was a powerful sword for fighting the Makdugi. Since the hero had enormous potential, she knew the demons would gather forces to try to eliminate him, and, to prevent the boy from dying in the next battle, she said she would train him to make him stronger. Therefore, it was very important that Sorong did what she was asking. She ends up taking the other hair tie that hadn't been damaged, and uses it to tie her hair into a ponytail. She was happy to have received those elastics from Lee, and comments that she hopes the life force of this world leaves that hair elastic quickly, implying she couldn't use them because they were items from the human world. but she was very happy that he had thought of her and bought this gift. After getting up carrying the hair elastics, she tells Sorong that she is leaving, taking ice creams. It's funny that she can appear on top of our hero's bed, but to leave she has to take the bus. The scene returns to our hero's apartment. He had brought the toothbrush and also a tub of ice cream. The girl asks what he was doing and says it couldn't be work, but he makes an excuse, saying he was working like that. Then tell me the name of the company you work for. He said it was funeral services, but the girl said that was a lie. Upon noticing he was using a contact lens, she imagines he went out with some friends who like cosplay. Did my eye change color and I didn't notice? Yeah, kid, it changed. Go look in the mirror. He puts his hand on his eye, asking what the hell was happening. After running to the bathroom, he notices his eye was normal and even asks how she saw that his eye was different. But the girl kept making jokes, saying he was smelly. Since he didn't want her to know he was a soul guardian, he played along, pretending he really was an otaku and was with cosplay friends. She says this is amazing because she knows he has a new hobby. And there was our boy saying aloud some embarrassing otaku words. The scene shifts to the mock doogie world, and we see a house in the middle of a forest, and inside it was snowing. We are also shown a sword that seemed to be legendary. Summer enters that barrier where it was snowing, and comments that it is very annoying, because snow even fell in her hair. She had gone to the house of another mock doogie. The guy says he likes to read in winter, and that's why he cast a spell to make it snow outside. Summer only came to this place because, actually, their mother assigned the guy, Aurora of the Rain, to carry out a hunt. This Aurora of the Rain had no interest in hunting human souls, but was already spreading news that there was a rookie human, a guardian, who was giving them trouble. Aurora asks if this human happened to be the one who defeated Nightfrost. Laughing awkwardly, Summer says yes, and that she fought against him the previous night. Aurora ends up throwing a towel to Summer, and upon catching the towel she starts drying her hair. Having discovered that he was the one dealing with the human who defeated Nightfrost, she said she was interested. Again guys, it's impossible to know if these Mokdugi are men or women. Each time the translation says it differently. Summer sits down and starts drinking tea with Aurora. The woman asks if the mission is to kill that human, as they discovered he has a special ability. The little cat says she doesn't know exactly what the mission is, so he has to go talk to their mother to get the details. But she imagines the mission is really to eliminate Sasha and that Lee guy, and not to capture human souls, especially because that boy showed he could use the inextinguishable white fire. And the worst for them is that this human could also use modern weapons. He exploded a bomb and spread a kind of white fire that was unquenchable. The rats were agonizing for several minutes, and in a kind of crazy way Summer says this human is very interesting and even asks Aurora if she is also interested in fighting that guy. That's because he used different weapons. Aurora says she doesn't care, since she had never faced humans with advanced modern weapons. Closing the book, she says that no matter who it is, she will win, because she is very powerful. She gets up from the chair and immediately grabs a scarf, saying that ancient or modern weapons are the same, and it makes no difference to her. After putting on a coat, she goes to the legendary sword and says she will cut Lee's hands. Without hands, he would no longer be able to fight the Mokdugi, and the job would be done. Summer says Aurora shouldn't underestimate that boy, because she herself had fought him and saw that he always pulls a card from his sleeve. After putting the sword back in its sheath, she says she will meet with Nightfrost. That's probably because he should have more information about this human, and she runs off to meet the wolf. Meanwhile, Summer drinks her tea and also mentions that she doesn't know why the Mokdugi follow their mother's orders so strictly. Everything she says, they do. After that day, our hero was at home recovering. He took this time to study the other pages of that 3D modeling book and also worked on his software, making other models to learn a bit more. But he also wasn't going to let his physique weaken. So he went out for a run, and at night spent most of his time materializing weapons, until the day of training finally arrived. She was checking his eye to see if the power had really worked. After 3 days, our hero's facial paralysis had ended, and now he could use the power of the eye. She turns to Sorong and asks her to install the spells. Our hero doesn't understand anything, but has a little robot scanning his eye. Sasha explains that 5 divine-level spells were recorded. He could use some recorders to record the magical words and perform the spell. This magical eye was an extension of his power. And Sorong explains that, because he is very old, he won't be able to learn these powers practically. That's why they are doing this. Taking advantage of the fact that he has a lot of mana and can use kingdom-level spells, he could use the eye to do it more simply. Some younger humans hired as guardians can use Gi attribute spells. They manipulate wind, fire, earth, and other elements freely. They don't need to use divine-level spells. That's because they learned from a young age, but our hero was already old. In other words, he had a lot of mana, but didn't have the potential to memorize all possible spells. He apologizes for being so absent-minded, and Sasha smiles saying it's no problem because they already solved that issue. She mentions that Sorong and Lee are getting along, and they sit there dying of embarrassment. Taking advantage of the sunny day, they would start training. Sorong made a bigger barrier so they could train. She mentions that, even with a lot of mana, our hero had many blind spots and was vulnerable. And since he used long-range weapons, it left even more openings. That's why he became an easy target for anyone attacking from behind. Because of that, they would do some spells. The first one she presents is the map of mountains and rivers. It was like a sharper vision that stayed in front of his eyes. Ah, how cool. And what's the second spell? However, he wasn't supposed to be in such a hurry, because she was going to explain more about hand-to-hand combat. Even if he activated that map and knew where the attacks were coming from, he couldn't block them, and she even simulates him getting hit by a hammer and flying away. His body was good for attacking, but terrible for defense. That's why she teaches him an emergency spell so he can escape. This spell was called the Sky-Piercing Seal. The girl explains that he could swap places with any object he sees within a 500-meter radius. After mentioning that her defense was great, she suggests he swap places with her. She jumps back, staying far from him, and tells him to activate the seal to swap places. After saying the words, the boy really swaps places with Sasha, ending up on top of the wall where she had jumped. Next, she jumps and stops beside him. This spell would be useful for him to escape in dangerous situations. She says she also has the spell so she could swap places with him too. But our boy was suspicious, thinking he could put her at a disadvantage and in danger. I bet he thought, damn, I'm the man, and who I'm going to protect is a delicate girl. And that's exactly what he said, guys. He said she couldn't put herself at risk because of him. Giving a slightly charming smile, Sasha said she would never put herself in danger, because she was very powerful. She may not look like it, but she was extremely strong. She had already fought other monsters before. Drawing her sword, she says that goddesses don't fight the Mokdugi only because they don't have mana like humans. To show that she was strong, she said she would do a hand-to-hand combat training with him. Right after, our protagonist starts stretching. Since it was for him to get used to hand-to-hand combat, she activated the part of taking damage inside the barrier, and told him to activate the Jiquido, the ability to see extra things. He does this, and a panel appears in front of him with some details. The boy says it's amazing, because his field of vision increased drastically. But that wouldn't be enough in battle, so he would need to improve his body for physical combat. The boy was understanding everything. Sasha says that, while having ice cream with Sorang, she had a brilliant idea. The little blonde gave the idea to the master to make a reward system, and handed a letter to our hero for him to read how it worked. He finds it curious to have a reward and punishment system. If he did well in the training, he would earn a survival rate. He mentions that the reward wasn't that good, and wonders what the punishment would be. The letter said that if he did poorly in the training, a kind of hacker would hack his phone system and see his entire Google search history. Sasha becomes curious about what punishment that could be, and says she doesn't understand how that could be punitive. The boy looks like he has something important to hide, suspiciously. Sarang appears beside him and mentions that there was a small yellow paper hidden underneath. The boy tenses and prepares to grab the paper. Down there it was written not to mock her. Sasha didn't understand anything, but Sarang knew that our protagonist researched indecent things, to say the least. Yeah, guys. It's no use saying anything. I know very well what you search for. The scene shifts to the world of the Mokdugi. Aurora is coming toward the wolf. Nightfrost notices that there's a guy coming with a large sword. Aurora starts provoking the little wolf, saying he returned from the hunt empty-handed. But Nightfrost tells Aurora to be careful with her words. He didn't want to cause trouble in their mother's house. Aurora continues provoking, asking if he was punished by their mother, but the wolf replies no, because their mother was very kind. Of course she is kind. She wouldn't scold a little child who failed a hunt. I didn't fail the hunt, I just fulfilled my promise. It seems Aurora likes to provoke Nightfrost, and they keep exchanging barbs. Aurora wasn't respecting Lee and Sasha very much, so Nightfrost explains that that boy is a brave human. Brave, huh? That doesn't make him a strong warrior. Without much patience for arguing, he simply said not to underestimate that human and that goddess. But we see that the fox and she didn't really believe our protagonist was strong. It's this type of character that ends up taking a beating at the end of the story. The guy also says, in a dark tone, that brave and skilled warriors are always the ones who progress the most. Aurora continues saying that Nightfrost seems to like these humans very much, and even comments that probably Lee and Sasha won't be able to withstand his sword techniques. The scene returns to training. Our hero was already preparing to face the girl. She told him to carefully analyze the environment, because it was important to know where he was stepping. And extending the sword, she told him to manifest his own weapon. The boy thinks about which weapon to use. She explains that inside the barrier, he wouldn't be hurt, even if attacked by her. So he needed to stay calm. Since he was great at long-range attacks, he decides to create weapons he was already used to, and ends up materializing a shotgun, a somewhat close-range weapon, since he wasn't shooting from very far. Sasha told him to get ready and use the new ability to reduce blind spots. Our protagonist hadn't even finished listening to the explanation, because Sasha simply disappeared. He knew she did that so he could test the new ability. And when someone disappears, they're probably on the upper part, and he ends up aiming. Seeing a simple movement, he fires a shot. He realized it was exactly there that she was, because the girl threw the sword to the ground, falling beside him. Of course, he was already freaking out, and without noticing, she teleports to his side, ready to attack him. Next, she kicks him in the ribs, throwing him far away. He falls like a sack of potatoes. She said she had only activated a bit of the pain, but the pain he feels is terrible. With no time to rest, she appears on top of him, ready to kick his back again. And that's exactly what she does, burying the poor guy in the ground. Think of a protagonist born to get beaten up, poor thing. She told him to hold on, because this wasn't enough to eliminate him. This isn't enough to eliminate me. If I didn't have this spiritual body, I probably would have been split in half. Come on, Lee, get up, let's continue training. Hold on, woman, my back hurts. I applied a pain reduction just so you wouldn't die. All the pain you feel will be necessary to improve your hand-to-hand combat. Holding the weapon, he said he wouldn't give up and asked to start the training again. Smiling, the girl said that was exactly what she wanted to hear from his mouth. Beating me is almost impossible. In today's training, you will continue losing, so start getting used to it. And that's exactly what happened for several minutes. But our boy wasn't going to keep getting beaten forever. He was already preparing another strategy, trying to motivate him. She said all this training would bear fruit. You will become a great guardian. The training continued with Sasha giving several punches to the protagonist. The poor guy was getting beaten more than a 90s anime protagonist, and ended up suffering 6 consecutive defeats. The duration of each battle was about 10 seconds on average. The place inside the training barrier was completely destroyed. After a while, she congratulated him, because he managed to last more than 10 seconds. With tears in his eyes, he thanks her, but in reality, he was dying of embarrassment. Extending the sword, she said she would stop training for today, and that he should improve a little more. She tells him to try to block her sword, and he ends up protecting himself with his weapon. Right after, she starts pressing the little wooden sword, and he is crushed to the ground with overwhelming force. When she pulls back the sword, he has a bump on his head, complaining, saying he didn't expect that. He thought he could block her attacks with his strength, but she was on a totally different level. She said he had a very wrong perception, which is why he got beaten so much in training. Since his perception skills weren't good, he asks what he would have to do. In response, she tells him to use the tools of civilization called weapons and tools. That is, he should materialize items that would help him in combat. Since he had difficulty in hand-to-hand combat, he just needed to create good long-range weapons. And if he needed to fight hand-to-hand, he would make a shield. Making a gesture with her hand, she tells him to try making a shield to block the next attack. He concentrates, and makes a shield roughly the size she specified. Now with the shield in hand, he prepares for the attack she is going to make. He was also supposed to shorten the barrel of the weapon. He remembers that when he battled against the little cat and the Pio, he also used a weapon and a shield. She positions herself behind him and says she will try again. She would count to 3 and hit again, very hard on his head. So he was supposed to protect himself. She starts counting, and when she reaches 3, she strikes the sword against the shield. He manages to block perfectly, and she praises him. Next, she gives a slightly stronger attack, throwing the protagonist backward. But even so, he was doing well. Gradually, she increases the strength of the attacks, and he manages to withstand them all. In a few moments, she realizes he was doing better, remaining standing. The leg endurance and back balance were improving, and above all, his confidence had reached a higher level. Feeling that he was improving, she started intensifying the attacks even more. He even noticed an opening to counterattack. Looking at the cocked weapon, she realized what he wanted to do. At that moment, she strikes the shield from bottom to top, leaving the boy unprotected and disarmed. The shield falls beside his face, leaving him surprised. It was 10 battles and 10 defeats. He lost them all. He was even trembling from shock, and at the same time frustrated, and she kept praising him, saying he did well. Next, Sasha claps and asks Sorong to send 2 chairs and something for her to drink with Lee. A light appears above their heads, and a table along with a chair falls near our hero. I don't know about you, but I think Sorong doesn't like him at all. The thing almost hit the protagonist, and Sasha keeps saying that Sorong must have miscalculated the coordinates. Next, she asks the boy to sit down. Only 1 chair fell. Where should I sit? Then Sasha asks Sorong to send another chair. Another light appears, and what shows up is a box of apples with a little moldy one. There was a note on top of the box that said chair. Yeah guys, I'm sure Sorong doesn't like our hero. Sasha says that there were probably no spare chairs, so Sorong sent that box. She stands up, telling the boy not to sit on the box but on the chair. But he says it's okay. I don't mind, I like sitting on apple boxes. Don't worry. As he sits, the box breaks and the apples fly everywhere. This makes him lose balance, and when he is about to fall to the ground, Sasha holds him with her foot. I think today was the most humiliating day of our hero's life, guys. She asks if he's okay, and he says yes, he's very well. But at that moment he ends up receiving an amazing reward. I think all this humiliation was worth it. I'm not so sure. Are you really okay, Lee? It looks like your face is turning red. No, I'm fine. It's just that your legs are very beautiful. At that moment, a chair falls on our hero, and he starts rolling from side to side because it landed on his shin. Sasha asks why Sorong did that, and the little blonde gives an excuse, saying his body is in spiritual mode, so he didn't get hurt. Giving a thumbs up, the boy confirms that he's not hurt, it just hurts a lot. Now they would rest a little. The boy was finding Sasha very cute during the training, and Sasha says that actually the one who is cute is Sorong, that super polite girl who keeps attacking things in me. She's not cute at all. Saying this, Sorong throws an energy drink can at our hero's cheek. Next, they continue with the training. This would be the final battle. If by chance he managed to last more than 30 seconds, he would win. Lee couldn't use simple bullets. Firearms were created many years ago, and after that evolved over time. After putting the bullets in his weapon, he puts in one last one, which was a special bullet, and comments that this will be his strategy to defeat Sasha. If he managed to hit her even once, he would already win according to the rules she set. It looks like your eyes are very determined. Your mindset is very strong. And raising the sword, she starts the battle. The girl was not joking, guys, and she already throws the sword at the protagonist. With the shield in hand, he tries to block. The girl smiles, because that was just a distraction, and advances toward the boy. Taking the opportunity, he fires his weapon. This shotgun was good for short-range attacks, and Sasha blocks it with her shield. The scene goes back a few minutes, when they were talking. She had asked if he wanted a drink, and he said no. With blushing cheeks, Sasha said it was a pity, because she wanted to drink something with him. Our boy didn't handle alcohol well, and asks her to make a chocolate milk, but since she was holding an alcoholic drink, he thinks of acting cool. Yeah, could you get me a beer, please? He tries to look cool, and she asks which brand he wants. Any, he replies, since he didn't know many. At that moment, he notices a magic circle appearing above his head, and a box of beer starts falling right on him. Sasha climbs onto the table and holds the box so it doesn't crush the protagonist's head. Strange, Sorong usually doesn't miscalculate the coordinates. She asks if the little girl was feeling unwell, and she says she was sleepy because she stayed up all night gaming. That's a bit suspicious, huh? All the magic circles she made were above my head. Still on the table, Sasha says that Sorong is very kind, because she sent a whole box full of beer. At that moment, the boy starts connecting the dots. She had been treating him badly for quite some time, and the only explanation for all of this was jealousy. Only now did this fool realize it, guys. She opens the box and hands a drink to the hero. The boy notices that she was laughing. Then he asks if by any chance she was reading his thoughts. In a very cute way, she says no. She just remembered a habit of Sorong. She had difficulties opening drink cans, so she always asked her master to open them. Back in the present, Sasha continues to push our hero hard. He tries to block the attack with the shield, but Sasha's sword technique is very refined and ends up cutting the metal shield. The bottom part of the iron plate falls completely. He knew that her magical protective barrier was far more powerful than the hand shield. She managed to cut the shield with a wooden sword, and when tossing the shield upwards, he still hadn't finished all his strategies. The girl cuts the shield that was thrown at her, and now that he was close, she said he had entered her contact area. There were still 20 seconds left for him to last in the battle. But the boy was betting everything on his last bullet. He had a few more shots to distract the girl, and continued firing at point-blank range. He had already made 6 consecutive shots, and Sasha says it's useless to shoot at the barrier because it won't break it. However, the 7th and final bullet arrived, which he called the Dragon Respirator bullet. There were 15 seconds left for him to survive the battle, and either win or hit her with the single shot. Aiming downwards, he said that this was his strategy. The girl didn't expect that, and since the lower part was unprotected, he fired the shot. That special bullet had a kind of iron powder, and the intention was to burn her clothes. And that's exactly what happened. The boy even felt embarrassed. Since she was hit by the iron powder, she declared our protagonist the winner. With her clothes all torn, she said that now she could trust him more as her partner. And the guy already had that cheeky look. I bet today was the happiest day of my life. As it was already getting late, she wished him a good rest and said the training would continue the next day. Back in the office, Sorong was feeling a little jealous, but said he did a great job, praising Lee. Sorong was a bit surprised because Sasha had also praised her. At night, our protagonist arrives home, very happy, and didn't stop smiling for a second. His sister even found it strange because he was in such a good mood. In the shower, he didn't stop smiling. During dinner, the boy kept smiling, even while washing the dishes. What could have happened to me? He remembered the scene when she said she could now trust him as a partner, and when lying down to sleep, he said he would have sweet dreams with Sasha and even dream about their children. The scene changes to the next day, very early. We see an employee complaining to her boss. It was a game company, and the programmers were not receiving salaries. The boss shouts, saying the company is almost bankrupt and they need to release the game quickly. He also complains, saying the director was delaying the game launch and always asking for more time. In her defense, the woman said she didn't want to release the game half-finished. The man gets angry, slamming his hand on the table, and said that since he is the CEO, he knows the company doesn't have enough money to pay the employees, let alone delay the game. He wanted the woman to release the incomplete game quickly and deceive the buyers, and he gives examples of other games that did that and earned a lot of money. But for the woman, she treated the game as if it were her own child. As she left, she was sad, saying she wouldn't do that, deceive the players. That's what happens a lot these days, guys. They release the buggy game and fix it later. This woman doubted her boss because they had received a very large investment from a company to produce the game. But mysteriously, all the money disappeared. With her hand on her head, she wondered what to do, because if they abandoned the game, they would have wasted several years of their life. The scene returns to that old man playing golf. Just by looking at his face, you can tell he's worthless. He said that young people today have no loyalty and only think about salaries. Why is that, huh, old smelly man? Actually, he exploits the company to the maximum, and after filling his pockets, declares bankruptcy. Later, the woman, Eunuch, goes to the bar. She was drinking and sad, saying her company was going to fail. She had fought a long time to get the position and produce the game she wanted. By mentioning that the game was like a child, she tried to disguise it, saying she wasn't married, and that it was symbolic. She vented to Barming, who was actually our protagonist in disguise. She decides to show some photos to the hero, and says she had already won some game developer championships. The boy praises her, saying it's very cool to work with such games. But the woman thought he was mocking her, and pulled his clothes, asking if he was belittling her. Calm down, miss, I just said working with games is fun, because I've already done this in 3D modeling. After that, the woman makes a little joke, saying that even if he were a developer, now he looked like an NPC, working in an RPG tavern. Lee noticed she wasn't doing well, and decided to put the teasing aside. What he really wanted to know was why Sasha put him as an infiltrator in a bar. She said it was for him to use Sorong's little robot for memory manipulation. The worst part is that Sasha never gave mission details. At that moment, the woman jumps from the chair. She says she needs to return to the company, and hands over a card to make the payment. When she leaves, she staggers. Lee knew that working in the gaming industry was very difficult. At that moment, he receives a notification on his phone with an address, saying they need to go there for the next mission. He rips off the apron, and upon leaving realizes the woman wasn't feeling well. She was dizzy and asks him to take her to the company, to continue working through the night. She gives the address, which was exactly the same building where the hero was going to work. Realizing this, he decides to help her, and calls a taxi. Without delay, they arrive at the building. He places the woman at the entrance, and asks her to wait there. Trying to seduce the boy, she asks him to take her to the office room. This could be awkward because if Sasha saw him with the other woman, she wouldn't know how to explain. But Eunuch grabs his arm and says that now that he brought her, he must fulfill the responsibility of taking her to the office. The boy shouts, saying he has no responsibility and that she's already an adult. At that moment, Sasha appears and asks, "What is Lee doing with a girl at 3 a.m.? She didn't expect him to be a womanizer and says this with jealousy. Wait, Sasha, it's nothing like what you're thinking. I would never be with this woman. This makes Sasha very angry. She stands up, puts the backpack on her shoulders, and says she will go back alone. But immediately after, she kneels and starts vomiting. Moments later, they go up the building. She apologizes for causing all the trouble. Sasha says it's okay, because they are already going to the 12th floor, which is the same place as her office, and also says she will talk to Mr. King. The girl realizes that he is her boss. The evil actions he accumulated reached their peak. Now he would be devoured by terrifying beasts. This would be the punishment for being a bad guy. Soreng's little robot was investigating people with low mana levels. I don't know why, but they were telling all of this to the girl. She is surprised, asking if the boss was really that bad. Yes, he is very bad. In fact, he is a scammer, and this is one of the worst crimes someone can commit. Onique says that, exactly. Her boss wasn't erasing the company employees, but rather because the game company was failing and had no money. But Sasha says that is all a lie, because he used the received investments to spend on personal things. In fact, Mr. King was a professional criminal, merely disguised as a failed businessman. He had several successful companies, but he set up a ghost company, took the investments, and invested them in his successful company. In the end, he didn't pay the employees of the failing company, precisely claiming he had no money. Upon hearing this story, Onique starts connecting the dots and realizes it makes sense. Sasha also says that, in the end, he would place a ghost president to take all the punishment in his place. That's exactly what he usually does. He transfers all his responsibility to another person who has nothing to do with it. Onique realizes this makes a lot of sense, gets traumatized, and asks what happened to the investment money. According to research, Sasha said that he bought real estate in his name and made an even greater fortune with all the diverted investments. AK had worked for many years to produce the game she dreamed of, and couldn't believe a guy like that would do this. She ended up asking to go to the bathroom. She was already feeling unwell, and upon hearing this news felt even worse. While waiting outside, Sasha said that there is no accidental fraud. Of course, everyone can make some mistakes and bankrupt companies, but in his case, he did it on purpose. Sasha then told our hero that she had put him as an infiltrator in that bar, so he could befriend Onique and thus reach Mr. King. But she didn't expect the boy to get Onique drunk, that he is much more of a womanizer than she imagined, and that, in the end, the two of them on the stairs seemed quite intimate. Lee becomes desperate, saying he didn't offer any drinks, and that the girl who was grabbing his clothes was out of control. He made excuses so Sasha wouldn't get jealous, and upon realizing she was joking, apologized. Laughing, she said she was just joking, and that he didn't need to be so desperate. She trusted that he was an honest and honorable guy, and that he wouldn't do that kind of thing to women. Next, Nick comes out of the bathroom, apologizing for the delay. Since Sasha was going to talk to her boss, the girl couldn't accompany her. Instead, she had prepared something for her. What do you mean prepared something for me? What does she mean? She receives a notification on her phone, and when she looks, Onik's eyes light up. With Sorong's help, she managed to sell all of Mr. King's assets, and using the money, paid the overdue salaries. People in the company group chat comment that all the overdue salaries from the past months had been paid, and she even used bank funds to return the invested amount in the game. Now she could lovingly create the game she had always dreamed of. After saying these words, Sasha begins to disappear along with Lee, who keeps asking how this is possible. Magically, they simply disappear. She falls to her knees on the ground, wondering if this wasn't a dream. Am I drunk and hallucinating? Next, they appear in another place. Our hero was already on alert because Makdugi appeared. The barrier had been created, but they didn't find any monsters in these corridors. Sasha mentions that they probably fell into some trap. With weapon and shield in hand, the protagonist says they cannot give advantage to the Makdugis. This barrier was a kind of notification or declaration of war. Seriously, the girl said she doesn't like surprise attacks because they seem dishonorable. Therefore, they should fight fairly, without surprise attacks. She had confidence that the protagonist could defeat all the monsters. Aurora appears and says she wasn't trying to underestimate the two. Lee is startled, and Aurora ends up throwing someone on top of the protagonist. It was precisely Mr. King, who hits his back against the wall. The old man was unconscious and basically paying for all the sins he had committed. Aurora says that the old man, even though about to die, was not dead, and she feels disgusted for having touched a human, removing her glove. Our hero asks why that Makdugi threw the human on them, since the monster's goal is to devour human souls. Burning the glove, Aurora responds that her goal is not that, introduces herself, and says her name is Aurora, the name she received from her mother, and that by her mother's order, she came there only to eliminate this boy. Aurora says it's a pleasure to meet them and keeps adjusting his glasses, saying that this was the name given by his mother. And also by her orders he came to eliminate our protagonist and immediately draws his sword, saying that this might be a little cliché, but he wanted to give Lee the chance to say his final words before dying. Of course, our hero acts all sarcastic. He was already using his analysis technique and said he wouldn't let this Aurora return empty-handed, especially because when he got back to the world of the Makdugs, he'd arrived there all beaten up. Adjusting his sword, Aurora keeps saying that this boy seems very confident. Quickly he removes the sword sheath saying he's going to deliver a precise strike, and in a surprising way, the guy simply throws the sheath at Lee. Our hero manages to block it with his shield. It was a bit strange that the guy used the sheath as a way to attack. Luckily, Lee's protective barrier was very resistant, but Aurora had another card up his sleeve and would use the back part of his sword. All that to perform the foxfire technique. Aurora was just watching our protagonist using defensive techniques, so he decided to help, and with that she cast a spell to block Aurora's flames. The guy lets out a small laugh, since he saw that this girl was really powerful, and then she uses a technique to cut through all that blue flame. The fox was underestimating our hero along with Sasha, so now he was going to use a slightly stronger technique called Peony Foxfire, and once again Sasha appears to protect our hero. They formed a very powerful duo and fought in complete sync. Besides that, Lee was holding a slightly hidden weapon and noticed that the human boy hadn't shown any hesitation. Sasha asks the fox who he said he was going to eliminate. Then the guy decides to test it, using his technique again. Blue flames cover the whole hallway, and with great skill Sasha blocks all those attacks and throws the flames to the sides. He laughs, saying that she's very skilled and managed to block all his power. However, he had used foxfire behind her. Those flames had the shape of a fox, but none of that was enough to get through Sasha's defenses. The girl was very skilled, and the guy keeps saying that he didn't expect them to be that strong. It seemed that the girl was much more powerful than that guy, so he'd need to separate the two. With that, Aurora starts to push even harder against Sasha's protective barrier. With a sly grin, he says that she isn't an opponent he could defeat that easily. However, that foxfire was cracking parts of the floor, and all of this was part of his plan to separate Sasha. And this way, the floor ends up breaking and she falls a few floors below. Now that she was in a hallway a bit far from our hero, the guy could fight alone. Touching his hand to the floor, he begins releasing his magic and says that now he's going to eliminate the boy. Then he causes a massive explosion on that floor. This explosion wasn't exactly to hit our hero, but to create a kind of barrier so that Sasha couldn't return to that floor. With a serious look, he keeps saying that now the fight will be calmer. The girl looks up and notices that Mr. Fox really placed a powerful barrier. She was trapped on the lower floor and tells our protagonist that he should try to buy some time, remembering that the goddesses cannot go there and directly defeat the Makdugs, so she'd need to find another strategy from down there. She keeps yelling to Lee that she'll try to break that rain of fire in a simpler way, so he should remember the training they did and buy some time. Our hero of course is dying of fear since he's about to fight a high-level Mokdug, and he'll have to do it alone. This was his chance to say something really cool to Sasha, but he couldn't say anything. He stammers and even freezes, saying that in moments like this on the spot, he doesn't know how to react. Sarang stays there on the other side watching on the screen saying that he's an idiot, and even mocks that Lee doesn't know how to act naturally when he's near the goddess. Meanwhile, Sasha uses her spell while talking with Sarang. Fighting a Mokdug of that level was very difficult, but she trusted our hero. Mr. Fox keeps taunting our protagonist, saying that now that the goddess has disappeared, he'll lose easily. And using provocative words he tries to make our hero lose focus. But Lee was very concentrated. "Yeah girl, now we can fight just the two of us, and I'll make great use of that." Of course our protagonist thought he was making some double-meaning joke and immediately started shooting. However, all his bullets pass right through that Mokdug. Surprised, our big guy is shocked, especially since that fox's body was made of flames. Basically that spell was used to defend against attacks, and since he only had that firearm, he'd have to figure out a way to defeat that guy. But of course the Mokdug wasn't going to waste any time and starts casting his spell on the sword. He was charging a powerful strike and dashed toward Lee. Our big guy of course was using his analysis technique and knew that the sheath would hit directly on his shield. With that he held his protective barrier tightly. Fox was all confident, thinking that this human was very weak, and instead of simply defeating our hero, he wanted to humiliate him by breaking his shield into pieces. At the moment he struck that shield, he realized that something strange was about to happen. That's because a huge explosion started, and that shield caused a reverse blast, launching Mr. Fox far away. Sorang, who was on the other side watching on the screen, began celebrating, saying that the plan worked and even joking that the Mokdug had turned into barbecue. All of that was part of our hero's strategy, who had made that shield as a prototype. Basically, if it suffered a weak direct hit, nothing would happen. But if the attack was intense and focused, it would create an explosion. And that's exactly what happened when the kinetic energy of that sword clashed against the shield. A massive frontal explosion was released. Our hero had that brilliant idea after taking that beating from Sasha. Sorang keeps saying that because of that, 50% of the credit goes to Sasha, about 49% goes to her who made the shield, and only 1% to our hero, saying that the idea was his. Sorang isn't very fair, right guys? Right after that, the Mokdug's sword cracked in half and the guy got a bit mad, because he knew he could have simply defeated the human but didn't. He wanted to humiliate. Materializing a new weapon, our protagonist asks where Aurora's confidence went and even jokes that the Mokdugs are very confident, but humans, even if weak, are intelligent for coming up with strategies. Aurora admitted that he was indeed very arrogant, thinking that if he removed the goddess from battle, he would win easily. He had purposely struck the shield trying to eliminate our hero in a humiliating way, but it didn't work. He knew that even being weak, humans possessed the ability to create weapons. And no matter how much time passed, humans always improved, creating even mechanisms of mass destruction. Realizing that he needed to defeat our hero quickly, he used his full strength. He wouldn't accept being defeated by a simple human. Firing several projectiles, Lee says that the smoke bomb the Mokdug was creating would be useless. But it wasn't a smoke bomb, guys. The Mokdug was transforming. He had turned into a giant fox and charged toward our hero. The big guy knew he couldn't withstand a frontal attack in that demonic form, but even so, he prepared his shield to absorb all the impact. To our big guy's surprise, something came out from that hole, and it was Sasha herself apologizing for being late. Now that she was above our hero, she managed to block the fox's claws, and just look at that shameless face. The Mokdug of course started trembling, realizing that the goddess had returned. Swinging her swords, she caused a great explosion, making the fox retreat. The shameless one's cheeks turned red since he was in a very favorable position, if you know what I mean. And he even jokes that in the next life he'd like to be an owl just to turn his head backward. This protagonist here is hopeless, guys. If you'd also like to be an owl at that moment, leave it in the comments. The Mokdug grits his teeth, saying he should have defeated that human earlier. Getting off our hero, she says that now they should take advantage of the opportunity. Aurora had wasted too much time for nothing, and this was the price he'd pay for his arrogance. He was about to use a technique that would put his life at risk, but someone ended up appearing, telling him not to do it. Who was there was none other than Summer, and she said he wasn't supposed to use that technique called Six Fangs. That technique would be too risky, and she also said that their mother ordered them to return since they had already captured the soul of the person who was in that building. Lee noticed that Summer was there and got tense. When he looked back, he saw that the soul of that criminal had indeed been captured by the Mokdugs. He became really furious. Aurora asks why she showed up there, and Summer chuckles, saying that their mother sent her only to stop Aurora from committing an atrocity. The fox felt humiliated because he had basically lost the battle. but since it was his mother's wish for him to return, and since they had already captured the soul, he would do so. Our hero was pointing his weapon, suspicious, and the mock dogs ended up saying goodbye, claiming that next time he wouldn't lose, and that he only faced humiliation because he had been too arrogant. The guy steps back into the portal, returning to the underworld, and Sasha realizes that in fact they were the ones defeated, since the man's soul had been taken away. Pointing her finger at our hero, Summer says that this wasn't a misunderstanding and that she hadn't saved them. In truth, she only prevented them from dying, because Aurora would have used a very dangerous technique. And since our hero had saved those little mice, basically Summer says that their deal was paid. She didn't owe them anything anymore. By the way, our protagonist had gotten much stronger, and it would be interesting to see this human fight next time. As she says goodbye, she tells him that from now on Lee earned the respect of the other mock dogs and would no longer be despised. With a small laugh, she says she thought the boy was weak, but she realized she was wrong. And that was sad because she preferred to fight weak people. Waving goodbye, she walks through the portal. That part of the building that was destroyed starts to regenerate since the barrier created by the mock dogs was undone. In just a few moments, the place looked brand new. Our hero looks back and sees that the corpse had disappeared, getting a bit angry because even though they won the fight, they failed the mission. They couldn't protect that person's soul. The guy gets upset and even apologizes to Sasha, saying it's all his fault for being weak. However, she says the one who was weak was her, because she didn't focus on the right thing and ended up letting the mock dogs take the soul away. The guy was feeling down, and Sasha tries to comfort him, especially since she prioritized their safety instead of Mr. King, quotes, who was that man. The second mistake Sasha made, according to her, was not predicting the appearance of another mock dog. In other words, she made the wrong choices, and the fault for the battle was completely hers. Our big guy gets surprised and asks if even the goddesses make mistakes and bad decisions. Of course, hearing those words, Sorang gets angry and immediately hits our hero, saying he shouldn't say things like that. Poor Mr. King flies away, and Sorang says that Sasha only said that to comfort him, and that he was actually the one to blame for everything. The poor guy didn't have a single moment of peace. The girl keeps saying to the little robot that actually the leader goddesses, in quotes, are never wrong, and that the wrong ones are always the humans. Sasha goes over there, holds Sorang's robot, and tells her to calm down. Then she even hugs the girl's little robot, saying she needs to be more patient with Lee, trying to explain himself. Mr. Lee says he wasn't being sarcastic, he was just surprised. He thought the goddesses never did anything wrong and were always right. In a cute and patient way, Sasha explains that the goddesses are just administrators of a system called Sorang. That system forms the whole world and exists to maintain a kind of balance. However, the mock dogs are apart from that system, and that's why they are seen as anomalies. Those goddesses exist exactly to contain those beings. Pressing a button, Sorang says she's going to prepare a report and hopes that Mr. Lee understands his position, because among the three he is in last place. She gets really mad because he was, in quotes, disrespecting Miss Sasha. She starts sending the files to our beloved goddess. While holding the little robot, our protagonist asks a question. He wants to know what happens when they fail in the mission to protect a soul. The girl says she has to make a handwritten report and even mentions that it will take her 2 days to write that report, leaving our protagonist surprised. He asks how many pages that report has, and she says 2 trillion pages. The guy already kneels on the floor, apologizing and saying it's all his fault. Sweetly, she also kneels down and says he doesn't need to feel guilty, because for her, time in that room passes differently, so it would be quick. The guy keeps feeling guilty, crying. Gently, she says she's very grateful to him for risking his own life in this job. Hearing that, he gets all smitten and motivated, asks if there's anything he can do to help her. She says yes, there is something. Since she'll spend 2 days writing that report, she says she'd like to find a room and even asks if, by any chance, he's free tomorrow to help her find that place. Logically, the boy gets all excited, saying he's freer than ever. So the meeting was set, he would go out with her to find a place. The guy even starts sweating cold, thinking it was a romantic date. At night, she sends a message to our hero saying she won't be able to make it to the meeting tomorrow morning and that she'll send Sorang in her place. The guy had never seen that girl before, so Sasha ends up sending a photo. The next day, very early, he wakes up to go to that so-called meeting with Sorang, and his sister asks what he's going to do. He tells his little sister that he's going on a date, and when she asks with whom, our hero answers that it's with a girl and leaves, slamming the door. The sister blushes, thinking that he finally got himself a girlfriend. The day was beautiful for a romantic date, and he keeps looking at his phone, imagining what a date with Sasha would be like. But unfortunately, it would be with Sorang. At that moment, someone shows up saying hello, calling him an idiot. And the big guy realizes that this was Miss Sorang, exactly the girl from the photo. He even thinks that if she's as angry in person as she is with the little robot, he's doomed. Extending his hands, he introduces himself, but she gets mad, saying she already knows his name and even says she knows a lot more than just the name. Whispering, she says she even knows the things he searches on those adult sites and finds his search words weird, saying he has a peculiar taste. She basically had been spying on him at night, and the guy gets angry, saying it's wrong to watch employees. The girl starts saying all that out loud in public, leaving our protagonist frozen. With tears in her eyes, she says she's very disappointed to know that Miss Sasha's partner is a shameless guy like him. She says that very loudly, drawing everyone's attention, and people around start looking. Our big guy realizes there's no way to win this argument with the blonde. While they're arguing, Sasha is writing that 2 trillion page report. And yes, the poor thing really was doing it. The little girl had talked to Sasha a little earlier, saying it wasn't necessary for her to do that. However, a human soul was very valuable. What she did was something very wrong. Maybe losing those human souls wouldn't bring immediate destruction, but it could in billions of years. Sasha understood Sarang's frustration very well and said she should calm down. Several shaman families around the world spent many years improving techniques to fight the Mokdugs, all that to prevent human souls from being devoured by those demons. That's why their job was so important. And Sasha gently caressed Sarang's cheek. It was essential for them to understand the seriousness of that work. She wanted our protagonist and Sarang to get along and build a good friendship. But the little girl didn't want that at all, and kept telling the boy to follow her. They would go to the place where Sasha's clothes would be made. Our hero says that place looks abandoned. He even points to the store saying it's empty. But the girl tells him to shut up, because that was the right place. At the entrance there was a little sign in a bag with a newspaper. He decides to check the newspaper to see if it was from today. When he picks it up he realizes it's from a very old date, about a year ago. Stretching out her hands, Sarang casts a spell to open the door, and immediately the little sign spins, allowing them to enter the place. Our hero still doubts it, thinking it's just an abandoned place. But when he goes through the door he realizes there's a magical barrier. Inside the place is extremely luxurious and beautiful. The girl tells him to move already and stop standing there like an idiot. Then she walks up to a bird and tells it to replace the newspaper at the door, because it was too old and could attract attention. Looking at the bird, our hero finds it strange, and she keeps scolding the creature, which keeps tilting its head from side to side. At that moment the boy hears a purring sound, and when he looks back he sees Pio, that little black cat. He goes over to pet it, but the cat didn't like being woken up while sleeping, and the blonde girl already warns him not to mess with it. Even the bird waves its wing telling him not to bother the cat. So our hero turns and asks, why is this bird so weird? The girl says its original name was Shuyo, but that didn't matter because the bird wasn't important. She calls him to come into another room. When he enters he's surprised because the building's facade was small but inside the space was huge. There was a gigantic library, and Sarang says that was her workspace. It was the girl's workshop where she made clothes and also the weapons used by the king. All the consumable items were made there. She says Sasha's stylish clothes are entirely created by her. Out of nowhere Sarang grabs a little cookie, and our hero finds it odd, wondering why she's eating that right now. When he looks to the side he sees a pile of snacks. Sarang justifies her sweet addiction by saying it's to stimulate her thinking, but he notices it's all processed food and jokes, saying that's not healthy. With blushing cheeks and a dirty mouth, she says she really likes snacks, but that wasn't so important. Our hero asks how she makes Sasha's clothes. Showing a brush she says it's with that artifact. The brush was used by a legendary artist and had a magical effect. Basically it drew what the person was thinking. Opening a bag of chips she says she needs to eat to have more creativity. At that moment he realizes she wasn't just addicted to sweets, but also to chips. Personally I prefer chips guys. And you? To show how the brush worked she starts drawing a few things. Our hero gives some clothing suggestions for Sasha and says it would be nice to add some pockets so she could store talismans. The blonde girl finds that amazing and says she'll add those pockets to the outfit. In just a few moments, she had made a maid cosplay for dear Sasha. And of course our shameless hero found that awesome but also weird because he had a taste very similar to Sarang's. All excited she goes and pins that drawing on the wall saying they can make that outfit later. She was totally thrilled and comes running. She even says Lee is really good at giving ideas and asks if he has any more suggestions. A little embarrassed, afraid of saying something dumb, he says it'd be nice to make some white clothes for her to wear. The blonde girl says it's good to create simple clothes that are good for combat, and so she starts drawing. Our hero makes that shameless face because the drawing is turning out very suggestive, if you know what I mean. In just a few moments, there was our dear Sasha in a nurse outfit. Looking at the blonde girl he realizes she's also a little weird just like him. She then happily pins that outfit on the wall. With his hand on his head he keeps thinking that Sarang has peculiar tastes just like his own. All excited he says it's his turn now to make a new outfit. Sarang says that since he's a rookie, he might not manage to make a decent outfit, but admits he has good taste. Grabbing that brush he thinks he's never done anything like this before. He couldn't think of anything too indecent if you know what I mean, so he decides not to fool around and to make a serious outfit for real. The guy starts giving his best, and the paper even begins to glow with a golden light. In just a few moments, the drawing is done, and the blonde girl gets furious. When she looks at the drawing she realizes our hero is way more shameless than she thought, and starts accusing him of being a pervert. She doesn't understand why her master chose such a brazen partner, and even mentions she could have easily picked the spear priestess. When the poster of Sasha is pinned to the wall, you can clearly see from afar what kind of outfit he designed. The guy asks who that spear priestess she mentioned is, but the blonde doesn't want to talk. Then he gets a brilliant idea to make her spill it. He shows a picture of a cafe full of sweets and says he'll take her there if she tells the story. Seeing that, she feels very tempted, especially since that cafe sells the best desserts in town, and she even starts drooling. That way, our protagonist manages to buy Sorang off and takes her there. Upon arriving at the cafe, she's completely enchanted, so he goes ahead and asks who that spear priestess Sasha could have chosen is. The blonde explains that there are shaman families spread all over the world. They create perfect partners so the goddesses can fight against the Mokadugs. With her mouth covered in sweets, she also explains that those shaman families adopt orphan girls. After adoption, they go through intense training to fight ghosts. They drink lots of purified water to become strong against those demons, and do that for a long time until they become great warriors. Since they've been trained since childhood, they already possess a very high cultivation level. And it doesn't matter which religion the girl follows, they all go through a final training. Our hero asks if those shaman sects don't have their own religions. Sorang replies that it doesn't matter if they're Catholic, Buddhist, or Protestant. In the end, what truly shows their power is if they have a Christian vow. It's kind of contradictory, guys, but after finishing their training, they go to a church and perform a sort of baptism. Among all the created priestesses, they always possess much more mana than normal humans, and that's why they are perfect choices to become companions for the goddesses. In other words, even a weak priestess would still be much stronger than our hero. She says that while pointing her finger at him, of course he feels humiliated, since he wasn't good enough to be Sasha's partner. But it was strange, why did Sasha choose him as her companion instead of a spear priestess? The scene changes to a little later, and we see that Mokdug knocking on a door. He was waiting outside an apartment and heard the little cat singing inside. Then he starts knocking harder, and who shows up is none other than Summer. The little cat tells him to ring the bell instead of banging on the door. The guy says he doesn't like annoying stuff like injections, because he's tired of missions. The kitty then says that if he's tired he can sleep in her bed, and she won't charge him this time. She was making a double-meaning joke, if you know what I mean. That makes the guy mad, and he even says that being a guy wearing women's clothes, he looks way too much like a woman. And she jokes back saying that's exactly what she wanted. Yeah guys, I was caught off guard. I really thought that character was a woman the whole time, but alright, right? The wolf keeps saying it's not normal for a man to wear women's clothes and that he should dress like a man, especially since no man wears an apron to cook. And when he looks ahead, he sees it's actually Mr. Fox wearing the apron. And it was a really cute apron, which makes him mock the guy. Moments later, they're all having lunch and the wolf says they should quickly talk about the reason for this meeting. They needed to deal with that human who was getting stronger thanks to Sasha, but Aurora says it's better to talk about that later and enjoy the meal. The wolf says they're acting too much like humans doing this kind of thing, and even comments that the fox is becoming more and more human, forgetting his origins. That way they start throwing barbs at each other. The fox says the wolf is very weak since he was humiliated last time. That makes the guy furious, and he immediately throws the table away, ending the dinner. While they insult each other, Summer stays in the back trying to calm them down, saying they actually have something in common. Both of them were humiliated by that rookie human. Immediately the two grab the little cat by the neck and she apologizes, saying she's really scared of violence. Some time passes, and they finally make peace. While cleaning the dishes, Summer says there's something very strange about the existence of the Mokdugs. It was weird that they were so much stronger than humans but couldn't fight them until human mana was low. The demons could basically only kill humans whose mana was extremely weak, and the humans' mana would drop whenever they did bad deeds. So the Mokdugs were basically reapers. They served to purify the soul of the human world, eliminating people who were, let's say, dead weight. But at the same time, they were seen as anomalies and hunted by the goddesses all the time. Aurora tells them to drop the subject because he actually agrees but thinks it's better not to talk about it. They were extremely obedient to their mother, so they didn't like questioning those things. The wolf even says he would never doubt their mother, and that she would never put them in danger with unnecessary things. After all, everything they did was for the good of their own kind. Their mother reached out her hands to save them all. The scene shifts back to the cafe, and our hero is puzzled, wondering why Sasha chose him. The girl says she doesn't know the reason, but trusts her master and believes he was chosen for a good purpose. Since shaman families exist all around the world, it isn't easy to recruit those girls who are priestesses. That's why they're so valuable, and the gods always seek the most powerful warriors. Even if Sasha didn't get the most powerful one, she could have chosen any other girl instead of our hero. That makes him feel even more guilty. But the blonde admits that his mana level is actually quite high and that he's talented. That's why he should train hard until he reaches the level to be a worthy partner for Sasha. The big guy says he doesn't know why he was chosen, but promises to give his best to become stronger. He wants to prove that Sasha chose the right person. That surprises the girl. She throws a little spoon at his forehead and says he's being too full of himself, but admits that Sasha would never choose wrong and that she trusts him too. Then she starts casting a spell saying she'll give him a gift to help him. She pulls a tablet out of a portal and says he'll get that to focus on training and get stronger. A few days pass and Sasha finally finishes writing that 2 trillion page report. The blonde, all excited, says she made a kind of contract so Sasha could summon that sword whenever she wanted. But at the same time she was worried about her master, thinking she must be tired after writing for so long. All sweet, Sasha says she's not tired and that her student doesn't need to worry. But at the same time she gets a little annoyed, thinking it's strange to need permission to summon weapons. Calmly, Sasha explains that it's because those weapons are of a very powerful category. Even so, the blonde isn't convinced and says they should be able to summon weapons whenever they wanted. At that moment she asks the secretary if she has a minute and mentions that the blonde's karma is very high, asking if she did something wrong. That's when she realizes she might have broken some rule. It was exactly when she pulled out that tablet with magic, saying she'd give a gift to our hero. In truth, she just wanted to help him, since he was living in a studio with his sister. To help him focus more on training, she was offering the guy an apartment to live in with his little sister. He gets a bit upset, saying he couldn't accept that because it was too much. But the girl gets even angrier, saying he should accept any kind of gift, especially since he had a lot of financial problems and couldn't fully focus on training. And if he accepted to live in an apartment near college, that would already bring him more stability. But he'd have to give something in return so she wouldn't get negative karma. So he puts his hand in his pocket looking for something. The only thing the guy had was a kind of lip balm, and the girl starts yelling, saying she wouldn't accept that kind of thing. Back to the present, she finally understands why she had that negative karma in her body. Sasha explains to the girl that this kind of bad karma doesn't go away easily, and that it's forbidden for gods to do such kind acts for humans, since that would be interference. That Sarang system existed to maintain a sort of balance in the universe. The goddesses watched from afar as humans suffered through wars and disasters, and even if they wanted to save people they couldn't interfere. She explains to the girl that even with good intentions, she ended up doing something that harmed the balance of the universe. If gods used their powers recklessly to help humans, it would cause a catastrophe no one could predict. That entire law was created by Princess Bari, who made the Sarang system to bring balance to the universe. It was a cold law, but it had to be followed strictly. However, humans weren't abandoned by the gods. On the contrary, people like Sasha were there to guide the souls. She even asks Sarang if she learned that at the school for young gods, and the girl says yes and that she's sorry, apologizing to Sasha. Our dear maiden says it's okay and asks the girl to sit on her lap. The blonde, all emotional, rests her head on Sasha's legs. Then Sasha asks the girl to wait a moment and begins to pull from inside her a kind of crimson energy. The blonde asks what that red orb is, and Sasha explains that it's all the karma inside the girl's body. The blonde realizes that Sasha was absorbing that negative karma and explains she did it to purify it. The girl gets outraged, saying her master shouldn't do that, but Sasha says that karma couldn't be dissolved by the girl since she was still too weak. Of course, the blonde starts crying, feeling guilty, saying she won't let her master suffer that punishment. Patting her head, Sasha says it's alright. Since she was a high-level goddess, she could purify it in a few days. Crying a lot, the blonde keeps apologizing, saying she didn't know it would bring so many bad consequences. We see how caring Sasha was, hugging her secretary, and saying there was no problem at all. She even asks what kind of compensation the girl asked Lee in exchange for that apartment. Little did Sasha know it was just a lip balm. The scene changes to the hospital. Lee's sister needed special treatment that was very expensive, and she'd stay hospitalized 24 hours a day for it to work on her body. When arriving at the hospital, the receptionist said that the protagonist's sister would have a private room. The boy gets surprised, asking who paid for a private room in such an expensive hospital. When reaching room 120, he gets even more shocked. His sister asks if it was his boss who paid for those benefits, and the guy confirms it was. When he opens the door, he wonders who was inside and realizes it was dear Sasha wearing the outfit Sarang had made. The shameless guy immediately closes the door, and his sister asks what that female voice was. The nervous guy tries to cover it up, asking her to go buy some drinks. All innocent, the sister asks what kind of drink, and he says it doesn't matter, just so she'll leave. Taking the girl to the elevator, he tells her to take as long as possible. Then the shameless guy goes back to the room. All charming, Sasha says she's wearing the outfit he designed. The guy, desperate, even knocks over a chair. He puts his hand on Sasha's shoulder and asks why she's wearing something like that. She wasn't supposed to wear something showing so much skin, and with his cheeks red, he says he didn't design that. It's not that he doesn't want her to wear such clothes, but it was too provocative. He even starts taking off his own shirt, saying she needs to cover those parts of her body. But of course, at such an embarrassing moment, his sister would open the door, right? Blushing and a little breathless, Sasha says hello to Lee's sister. Seeing that scene, the sister gets embarrassed and turns her face away, already imagining they were about to do something wrong, if you know what I mean. All nervous, she asks what her brother was doing with that half-naked girl, saying she was already traumatized by the weird videos he watched on his computer. And the guy keeps telling his sister to be quiet. With the shirt tangled on his face, he insists he's not some perverted idiot. 5 minutes later, they had already cleared up the whole misunderstanding. The girl says she didn't know Sasha was her brother's boss and even mentions she was traumatized because of the videos he watched. All teasing, Sasha says she's only wearing that outfit because Lee himself ordered it. Again, the sister gets mad, asking if her brother has no shame, and starts dragging him by the shirt. She says he could very well watch those forbidden videos on his computer, but shouldn't flirt with his own boss. The poor guy keeps begging his sister to stop bringing up those videos. Then Sasha decides to help our hero, saying there was a misunderstanding. She wasn't necessarily forced by Lee. She was just wearing an outfit designed by his secretary. The protagonist's sister starts apologizing, and Sasha admits that the outfit Lee had designed was actually a swimsuit and not that nurse uniform. But she decided to wear the nurse outfit because it was a bit more casual and it would be embarrassing to go to a hospital wearing a swimsuit. At that moment, the girl was sure her brother was a pervert and ends up punching him, calling him shameless. A few minutes later, the hero's sister was medicated and had already fallen into a deep sleep. The nurse was making some preparations and said that since the medicine was strong, she'd stay sedated for 24 hours. Since that part of the hospital was private, they could only call the nurses through the intercom. After saying that, the nurse seems to get an idea. She was in front of a beautiful couple and gives a shy laugh, saying she feels jealous thinking of when she was younger. She says she met her husband in that very hospital and mentions that the doors are thick and soundproof, so they could do whatever they wanted inside. Outside, she says loudly that they could relax because no one would bother them. The protagonist freezes, dying of embarrassment. Sasha comments that it's good to know those doors are soundproof. What could that naughty girl be planning, huh, guys? Then she tells Sarang to release the drone, and the blonde's drone appears right there in the hospital. The big guy asks if their mission to hunt Mokdug will take place in that building. The girl answers yes, it will happen in a private room in the building next door. She also mentions that the idea of getting a private room for more safety was thanks to Sarang. She was the one who had that brilliant idea. The girl gets all shy and says she did it for the well-being of the hero's sister, not because of him. Sasha says that Sarang wanted to do something good for the hero, but it had to be something that wouldn't bring negative karma. That's why she spent the whole night reading the Book of Divine Laws until she found something that was beneficial and wouldn't bring too much karma. But she gets angry, saying she didn't do it because of him. Even so, Sasha feels happy because now the two were getting along. She comments that she's happy to meet the hero's sister since she has a rare soul. Eden basically was a new soul, extremely clean. The boy doesn't understand anything. How come a newborn soul? Then Sasha explains that the girl is a pure newly created soul. She hasn't gone through any reincarnation. It was a clean soul, free from both good and bad deeds. Spiritually, she was pure, like a blank sheet of paper. Creating souls like that happens all over the planet. But it's very rare. It happens once every million times. The protagonist is surprised and even asks if that's good or bad, and if by any chance there could be any negative effect. Sasha says that newly created souls are kind of normal, but they have no advantage or disadvantage. Basically, his sister's soul is clean, like a blank canvas. Although that was normal and rare at the same time, it meant she was an ordinary girl. She had nothing bad, nor anything good. Yeah guys, I know it sounds weird, but basically she was a pure soul. Now they would focus on the wrongdoers whose mana was low nearby. Sasha explains that those wrongdoers are in the next building, and that around 3 a.m., Mokdug will appear to eliminate them. Those people were accumulating negative karma, and their mana was already very low. There would be 4 people, and the hero gets a bit tense. Sasha explains that they lead a group formed by heirs of the 4th generation of famous businessmen. Those people were sharing some kind of illegal product. And you know what I mean, that sugar, let's call it that, was being brought to Korea in thousands of tons per year. And that girl Jodim, who had lost her life, was also involved in that. The hospital owner was the guy mixed up in those sugar schemes. The hero asks if they were going to harm his sister, and Sasha says no, but they were doing bad things to other patients. They made a kind of life insurance for the patients and soon after eliminated them. They put some kind of poison in the IV bags and kept all the money, claiming the people died from medical errors. That way they increased the family fortune, not to mention they could buy much more sugar. Realizing that, the boy says they need to act fast before those people kill anyone else. Sasha says that might sound frustrating, but they can't act fast enough. Because of the god's law, they couldn't interfere directly, or it would cause serious damage. The only way to punish those wrongdoers was to wait until their mana dropped and the Mokdugs appeared to eliminate them. But at that moment they would appear to stop the Mokdugs from stealing the souls. That's because it was necessary to guide those souls to hell. The protagonist asks if those people when taken to hell would regret it. Sasha answers that even while suffering a lot, that's practically impossible. They would suffer something beyond human comprehension. They would be tormented for millennia and receive the worst punishments possible. After a while, those souls would be purified and go through reincarnation. The god's job was exactly that, to make people purified. If they lost another soul, Sasha would spend another week writing on those papers, which made the hero nervous. He didn't want her to suffer that punishment again. That's why this time the hero would infiltrate that group of mobsters. Sarang starts to open a portal for him to get his uniform. He would infiltrate that group to discover what they were doing. The girl prepared a super stylish outfit for him and even joked that she would wrap him in the best package ever. Some time passes, and the big guy puts on the stylish outfit. He was supposed to pretend he was a businessman's son. He would attend that mobsters meeting to find out what they were plotting. Through the little robot, the blonde says that even with the stylish outfit, he still wasn't handsome. Sarang says she likes him the way he is and doesn't care about fancy or stylish clothes. Hearing Sasha's words, he gets his cheeks flushed. Then she says that he wasn't just supposed to find out what they were doing in that room but also to buy some time, and she also asks him to take the silver worm. She explains that they would probably make him take some kind of drug to alter him. Then that little worm would purify everything he took. She assures him not to worry because the worm was totally safe. He says the worm is cute and disgusting at the same time. Right after that, she gives him a talisman to put in his pocket and explains that they could communicate through it telepathically. Without questioning much, he puts the talisman in his pocket. She asks if he can hear through thoughts and then gets close, all romantic, fixing his tie. She says it's for him to blend into the meeting pretending to be one of the mafia businessmen. The guy gets all love-struck because she's standing really close to him. Sarang notices that the shameless guy is in love and even blushing. Then she gets mad and hits him in the face with the little robot, telling him to stop making that goofy face. Right after that, Sasha wishes him a safe trip and says she'll take care of his sister. So she closes the door and he freezes, thinking it would be great to work every day feeling like that. But since Sasha could hear all his thoughts, she asks how he usually feels. She knew exactly what he meant but was just teasing him. The guy runs off, dying of embarrassment, while she laughs on the other side of the room. While the big guy walks toward the other building, she says he needs to infiltrate. Those mobsters were starting to inject that poison into the hospitalized patients. And since they had a lot of negative karma, they would end up attracting the mockdugs. Sasha confirms that's exactly it. When they were about to be attacked by the demons, she would appear to save him. The only thing he had to do was gain the mobsters' trust, and also buy some time. But just infiltrating that meeting would already be enough, and she guarantees that when the mockdugs appear, she'll be there to help. The guy gets tense as he approaches the mobster's door. He stops in front of the place, and the girl says, through telepathy, that he needs to do the right combination to open it. First, he had to hold the doorknob and shake it 3 times, and when they knocked on the door, he should say the secret word. The big guy ends up saying the secret phrase she had taught him, and then one of the guys opens the door saying he's a VIP guest. They said that because he knew the secret password. When he enters, he sees 3 more guys and a person in a coma. The one who opened the door tells the others that this mobster must be someone important since he knew the special password. The group starts saying that this VIP must be someone really rich. They even ask if he studied abroad. One of the guys says not to ask questions to a VIP guest. After he sits down, they start offering him a drink, clearly spiked. One of them even offers to call some women if he wants. He picks up the glass and realizes they put sugar in it. Then he asks Sasha telepathically if he should drink it. She says yes, because the slime on his shoulder would purify everything. The guy needed to drink to earn their trust. They keep watching to see if he'll really drink it. The big guy drinks it all and soon feels the side effects of the drink. But the slime starts purifying him. It was like a leech draining all the poison. He comments that the little creature seems cute but gross at the same time. And it was working. He managed to remove all the poison from his body. And it happened so fast it even felt strange. The guys comment that he's really strong since he drank everything without flinching. Then he pretends and says he's done this many times before. Sasha giggles because he's such a good liar. Mentally, they both celebrate since the plan worked. Now the real job was starting. The guys put other things in his drink and forced the hero to drink everything. But Sasha says he should drink it so they don't suspect anything. He wouldn't feel any real side effects since the slime purified everything. The slime also created a system window for him to see what kind of sugar was in the drink and act accordingly. He drinks something that makes him feel depressed. And that's exactly the act Lee puts on, pretending to be sad. The guys whisper that now that the newbie passed out, they can start the plan. And they also say that just to be sure, they'll offer him a stronger drink. They go up to him and ask if he wants to try a new item. Sasha warns the hero to take it and mentions that the mockdugs are about to appear. She also says the connection with him will drop for a short moment. The big guy says that's fine and asks if she'll really show up to help if the demons appear. He takes the pill while asking how dangerous it would be if that happens. Sasha says he's doing really well and can relax because she'll appear to help him. It seemed he was still traumatized from the last fight. After taking it, the guys laugh, saying that now he's going to pass out. But the slime on his wrist absorbs all the poison. He doesn't feel any side effects from drinking that kind of stuff. At that moment, a system window pops up showing the pill's effects. In other words, he would feel strongly attracted to women. He gets tense, wondering how he should act. It was obvious the mobsters wanted to get him out of the room to kill the man in a coma. And that's exactly what they did, guys. They made life insurance for people and then injected poison to keep the money. Looking at them, the hero already knew what to do. Then he starts shouting, telling them to call a woman right away. All red, he says he's excited and wants to go out with a girl. One of the mobsters says that's on him and quickly grabs his phone to call his girls. Surprisingly, there was already a woman outside the building. He gives an evil laugh and says she's already coming up the stairs. Our hero pretends to be under the effect of the drink, sweating cold. The guy tells him to go to the room next door to enjoy the date with the girl. With an awkward laugh, he says he likes that room anyway and that he'll have fun with the girl and come back soon. But of course he was pretending, because he couldn't leave those guys alone. If he did, the hospitalized patient would die. At that moment, the door opens and the one who walks in is a gorgeous girl full of attitude. Our hero immediately grabs the girl by the waist and says she's really beautiful and totally his type. The girl is playful too and says she can't wait to be alone with him. All he planned was to take that girl to a room alone and leave her there. But of course he was acting and says some shameless things to her. And so they close the door and go to another place. The mobsters all fall for her, saying that girl was truly amazing. They comment that it's a waste to leave such a beautiful girl with a rookie like him. But something was strange. The guy comments that the door was locked and she managed to open it effortlessly. He even wonders how she opened it without breaking it. Meanwhile, our hero walks down the hallway with the girl. His goal was to leave her in a room alone and come back as fast as possible. But something catches our hero's attention. All the elevators were on the first floor, yet they were already on the 12th. It was strange that the elevators were down there. He wonders how that woman went up so fast. It would be impossible for her to climb those stairs. But at that instant, she slaps the silver slime and grabs the creature that was invisible to human eyes. Seductively, she asks why he was carrying a little creature like that on his shoulder. This was not an ordinary human. She lets down her hair ties and shows that she has horns. Even more seductively, she asks what this naughty boy was up to. And that's how we end part 2 of this story. Guys, if you want me to bring the continuation soon, leave a comment. Lucky Hunter, because our hero is really lucky, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying this story. As soon as new chapters come out, I'll bring them to you. But only if you like it. So I ask you to leave a hype and a comment so YouTube recommends our video to more people. I'll also leave 2 story suggestions that I'm sure you'll like. If you want to support the channel even more, consider becoming a member. There are extra videos, and members watch them early, helping the channel grow. I'll be waiting for you in the next video. That's all for now. Thanks and see you later, everyone.